obstacles travel puts between us and our well-being, the more we strive to work well. At Westin Hotels and Resorts, we're focused on empowering your well-being. With Westin meetings, you work and feel your best with nutritious snacks and nourishing smoothies that give you the energy you need to power through any meeting. Don't leave your well-being behind. We give you the choice to get up or to rise. Search Westin online to find out more. Westin, let's rise.
Cold Wednesday mornings like this are cruel. You cough, you splutter, so does your car. Its battery dead, killed by an icy claw. Will anyone stand up to winter? Yes, you. Come to Halfords. We fit new batteries on the spot from just £15, and we're open late 7 days a week. See halfords.com for opening hours. Here in Chiswick. Ready for the cold snap? Ready for anything. Halfords, for life's journeys.
Batteries sold separately. Selected vehicles only in most stores.
They don't chant your name when you give blood, or sing songs about you. But patients and their families will remember you forever. Because your blood can change their lives. We need more blood donors in Tooting, the West End and Edgware. Bleed for London. Join us today at blood.co.uk.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak.
And it's 6:30 on Wall Street. Good morning. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow. We're just about 3 hours away from the opening of U.S. trading. Let's get you up to date on the news you need to know at this hour. Stocks in Asia and Europe are lower after President Trump warned China on the consequences of not signing a Phase 1 trade deal.
If we don't make a deal, we're going to substantially raise those tariffs. They're going to be raised very substantially.
Still, the president says China is dying to make a deal. We get more from Bloomberg FX and rate strategist Richard Jones.
The trade ball is in China's court. If we do get a Phase 1 deal soon, as the president said could happen, then I think recent price action that we've seen, higher equities, higher yields, probably is cemented. However, if China reacts badly to this, then I think we could see a big reversal in a lot of the prices.
Well, meanwhile, prices are under pressure in Hong Kong after another day of protests. The Hang Seng Index slid 1.8% as city officials and Chinese state media warned that violence will not be tolerated. We get more from Bloomberg's Karen Lee in Hong Kong.
Hong Kong's security chief warned of unthinkable consequences if violence continues in the city. The city's number 2 official, Chief Secretary Matthew Chung, also said the government remains confident in its ability to contain the chaos after days of intense unrest in the Asian financial hub. In Hong Kong, Karen Lee, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Karen, thank you. Oil lower for a third day as the International Energy Agency predicts global demand will peak around 2030. It cites the use of electric cars and slowing demand from China as the main drivers. And checking prices now, NYMEX crude oil is down 0.7% or 38 cents at $56.42 a barrel. Brent is down 1% or 64 cents at $61.42.
U.S. futures are lower ahead of U.S. inflation data and remarks from Jerome Powell. The government issues the Consumer Price Index at 8:30 a.m. Wall Street time. The Fed chairman testifies before Congress at 11.
On the corporate front, shares of Tesla up nearly 1% in early trading after Elon Musk said the company will build a factory in Germany. The CEO says Tesla will manufacture both batteries and cars at the new facility.
And Cisco Systems is among the most actively traded stocks in the pre-market as it prepares to report earnings today. Here with a preview is Bloomberg's Larry Kofsky.
Cisco begins fiscal 2020 with slowing sales momentum as tougher revenue comparisons are compounded by mounting concerns over enterprise IT spending. Soft earnings results from Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and IBM suggest little improvement in enterprise spending and hint that the slowdown may be more broad-based than Cisco forecast last quarter. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, Larry, thank you. S&P futures are down 12 points. Dow futures down 111 and NASDAQ futures down 42. 10-year Treasury up 17.30 seconds, yield 1.87%. And Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Karen, thank you. It's 6:33 on Wall Street. Time to check the latest world and national news now, brought to you by the New York Community Trust, a public charity working with generous New Yorkers to make an impact on the issues they care about. To set up your fund through the New York Community Trust, visit nycommunitytrust.org. Now here's Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Nathan. The public hearings in the House impeachment inquiry begin today. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has the story.
Democrats have been saying there are a number of avenues to look into that could lead to impeachable offenses. Intelligence Committee member Jackie Spears says one would seem to be bribery.
I have been speaking out about the potentiality of it being bribery for some time. The elements of bribery are there. You have a president using his official office, using taxpayer money to demand from a foreign government that they are bribed to do an investigation to dig up dirt on the president's opponent in the upcoming election.
Democrats say this is the first chance Americans have to hear directly from some of the principals in the investigation. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Hillary Clinton says that she is being urged by, quote, many people to enter the 2020 presidential race and would not rule out a third White House bid, though she has no plans for a run. President Trump says he does not care if former President Obama is more well-liked with Europe and its leaders.
They recently came out with a poll that President Obama is much more popular in Germany than I am. I said, guess what? He should be. He should be. The day I'm more popular than him, you know I'm not doing my job. Let's put it that way.
The president spoke at the Economic Club of New York yesterday. President Trump hosts a meeting with the president of Turkey as relations between the two NATO allies are at their lowest point in decades. Turkey is facing backlash over attacks on Kurdish civilians during its incursion into Syria last month. Some members of Congress say Turkish President Erdogan does not deserve a White House invite. Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, the Trump ally, says Erdogan needs to side either with the U.S. or Russia.
If there were a bill brought to sanction Turkey, I'd certainly seriously consider it.
President Trump holds a joint news conference today with Erdogan. The International Energy Agency says global greenhouse gas pollution rose for a second year. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
All right, Michael, thank you. 6:35 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update with John Stashauer.
Nathan, latest Knicks loss in Chicago. The Bulls, one of only two teams the Knicks have been able to defeat this season. The game was tied through three quarters, but in the fourth, Bulls won on a 24-2 run. Rookie Kobe White made 7 3-pointers. Chicago won 120-102. The Knicks are 2-9 amid reports coach David Fizdale is in danger of getting fired. Nets fell to 4-6, outscored by 20 in the second half. Lost at Utah 119-114. At the Garden, Rangers and Penguins 2-2 in overtime.
Here's Fox over the line. Adam Fox across the slot. Slides it back. The rookies hook up on the overtime winner. Kako wins it for the Rangers.
TSN had the call. Game winner by Capo Kako, the 18-year-old from Finland, who the Rangers just drafted with the second overall pick. St. John's went to 3-0, beat New Hampshire 74-61. Also wins for Manhattan and Wagner and Evansville. Upset top-ranked Kentucky at Rupp Arena. The Purple Aces came in as a 25-point underdog. If the college football season ended now, Alabama would not be in the 14 playoffs, something they've never not been in. Bama's home loss to LSU dropped them down, but only down to 5th behind LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia. Gabe Kapler fired by the Phillies, now the new manager of the Giants. The Twins' Rocco Baldelli edged out Aaron Boone for American League Manager of the Year. Could Colin Kaepernick be back in the NFL? Hasn't played since 2016 when he began taking a knee during the national anthem. He will work out and talk to teams on Saturday. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashauer. Nathan?
All right, John, thank you. We have this headline just crossing the Bloomberg terminal. Google plans to offer checking accounts to consumers. That's according to the Wall Street Journal, which says the tech giant plans to launch its financial services product next year. The project, codenamed Cache, will reportedly include accounts run by Citigroup and a credit union at Stanford University. The financial institution brands, not Google, will be front and center on the accounts, according to the Journal, and Google would leave the financial plumbing and compliance to the banks, activities it couldn't do without a license anyway. It's just before 6:38 on Wall Street.
The following commentary is from Bloomberg Opinion.
Disney Plus launches with Super Bundle Dreams. I'm Tara LaChapelle, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. It's time to bundle up. And not just because it's getting cold outside. This week's launch of Disney Plus suggests that the streaming industry is exploring ways to create new versions of the cable TV bundle. While Disney Plus is perfect for Star Wars and Marvel fans, or for parents of small children, it doesn't offer a whole lot of variety. That's why Disney also introduced a discounted $13 bundle that adds Hulu and ESPN Plus. The company probably won't be alone in doing this. For cable giants like Comcast and Charter, structuring similar packages would seem like a natural evolution of their distribution businesses. The splintering of TV content across various apps, each with their own paywalls, has created a frustrating experience for consumers. The revival of bundles could go a long way toward fixing that. I'm Tara LaChapelle. For more Bloomberg Opinion, please go to Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPIN Go on the Bloomberg terminal.
This has been Bloomberg Opinion.
You can hear Bloomberg Opinion commentaries every weekday at this time, and terminal customers can read more at OPIN Go. 6:39 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Green Report. Here's Bob Moon.
A new study has found that the most destructive U.S. hurricanes are hitting 3 times more frequently than they did a century ago. Experts generally measure a hurricane's destruction by adding up how much damage it did to people and cities. But a Danish research team came up with a new measurement that looked at just how big and strong the hurricane was based on its area of total destruction and not how much money it cost. The Danish scientists looked at hurricanes striking the U.S. mainland coastline since 1900 and found that hurricanes with the biggest footprint of destruction are happening 3.3 times more frequently. Storms like 2017's Harvey and 2005's Katrina. Climate scientists have predicted and shown that higher temperatures in the oceans and the atmosphere, a result of burning coal, oil, and other fuels, is creating more extreme weather and storms. Warm water is fuel for hurricanes, and storms are also tending to stall more. That's the Bloomberg Green Business Report. I'm Bob Moon.
All right, Bob, thanks. Now, some other stories we're watching this morning. Tencent Holdings out with earnings that missed estimates. Income and revenue for the company came in lower than predictions as weaker growth in China hurt its advertising business. Earnings from one iPhone assembler in Taiwan point to solid demand for Apple's newest device. Han High Precision's out with results that topped estimates. The company assembles most of Apple's iPhones and typically gears up for production months ahead of the launch of a device. And Nike is breaking up with Amazon. The athletic brand will stop selling products directly on the Amazon website, ending a pilot program that began in 2017. Nike is overhauling its retail strategy, going after e-commerce sales without Amazon's help. This is Bloomberg.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA/SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
The lifeblood of tech startups isn't just money. It's executive and technical skills. The kind of skills that companies need to build real products. And the skills that venture capitalist Chris Sugden of Edison Partners sees in the graduates that are coming out of New Jersey Institute of Technology.
The amazing thing about NJIT is their graduates, they have multiple offers on average, not just one. They're coming out with real skill sets that are immediately hireable and available to them. I think we see an understanding by the faculty and administration at NJIT that we've got to train and educate the whole student, not just their, one side of their brain. And I do think that's sort of part of the DNA today. There's practical and there's sort of academia, and merging those two together and understanding that if we're going to have our young people go get great jobs and have great successful careers, they've got to have both sides of their brain activated. And I think we see that with NJIT.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. Like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month, £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre, but you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status. Damage charges may apply. No ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services. Visit audi.co.uk.
At Asda this Christmas, treat them to a gift or two, or three, with 3 for 2 on a wide range of beauty and toiletry gift sets, from Dove, Lynx, Bayliss and Harding and many more. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores and lines subject to availability. Individual prices £1 to £20, cheapest item free.
When travelling from the centre of London to the heart of Edinburgh, what's best? A plane or an LNER train? Well, there's a massive queue at the airport, so 1-0 trains. Free Wi-Fi on board, 2-0. Actually, the airport's miles away, and you have to take your shoes off in security. Minus points for planes. So, it looks like an LNER train is the winner. Thanks for playing, planes. That's London to Edinburgh for 4 hours and 19 minutes. Book direct at lner.co.uk.
Waiting for a phone that makes everything look crystal clear? Like a brilliant iPhone 8 with Retina display? The wait is over. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event is on. This week, get an iPhone 8 for just $23.49 a month, a saving of £144. Get yours by 17th of November. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £27.49, now £23.49. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Decision makers to a network of news and financial information 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
On Capitol Hill, the House impeachment inquiry starts its public phase today, opening up live televised testimony. Correspondent Jessica Schneider tells us the White House is ready to respond.
We've learned that President Trump will be keeping a close eye on these hearings. They will stretch throughout the day. The White House communications team will also be in place, watching for those key moments that might help the president's case, and they'll be sending out the messaging and the clips on that in real time.
President Trump meets with Turkish strongman President Erdogan today at the White House. Relations between the two nations described as at a new low. Erdogan recently rebuffing President Trump while embracing Russia's Vladimir Putin. Over 234,000 voters in Wisconsin would be made unable to cast their ballot unless they register again under a lawsuit being filed today by a conservative organization. Democrats claim it's an effort to dampen their turnout in the 2020 presidential race. Pre-market trading indicating losses at the opening bell. Futures down across the boards. I'm Michael Toscano.
Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are these?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 6:47 on Wall Street. Futures are moving lower this morning. Let's go to the first word breaking in news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. That's right. U.S. futures are under pressure right now. Dow futures down 119 points. S&P's dropped 13 and NASDAQ futures declined by 43. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.87% and Hong Kong fell 1.8% overnight as the violence continued, while European markets are also under pressure, led by losses in Italy and Spain. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:30, the Consumer Price Index. At 11 o'clock, Fed's Powell speaks before Congress. And at 2 o'clock, the monthly budget statement. After the bell last night, Skyworks earnings disappointed. Shares are down 6.5% in the pre-market. And regarding earnings this morning, Canada Goose beat estimates. In other news, the impeachment hearings begin at 10 a.m. Dow Jones reported that Google will soon offer checking accounts to consumers. And UBS said that the airlines may see pricing pressure in 2020. 2020. In deal news, Tech Data to be acquired by Apollo for $130 per share in cash. And wrapping things up, Mosaic was cut to underweight at JP Morgan, while American Air was rated a new sell over at UBS. Live from the First Jamaica News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
Bill, thank you. To hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK, and we just want to give you a little more on that Google story. It is planning to offer checking accounts to consumers, that according to the Wall Street Journal, which says the tech company plans to launch its financial services product next year. The project, codenamed Cash, will reportedly include accounts run by Citigroup and a credit union at Stanford University. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Karen, impeachment hearings for President Donald Trump make their public debut. Democrats are calling 2 witnesses today, another Friday, and 8 more next week. President Trump is accused of tying U.S. aid to Ukraine to investigations of his political opponents. Former President Jimmy Carter is said to be recovering this morning at Atlanta's Emory University Hospital a day after surgery to relieve pressure on his brain. In the NBA, the Knicks and Nets lost. In the NHL, the Rangers won in overtime. The Bruins lost in the shootout. And a baseball note, former Philly skipper Gabe Kapler has been hired as the new manager of the San Francisco Giants. Finally, from Daybreak on the Bloomberg, the world's sexiest man is Nathan Hager.
I knew it.
Well,
I made it.
Unfortunately, People magazine, you just got edged out by John Legend. It was close. Selected.
Snubbed again.
By he won the Emmy, the Grammy, the Oscar, and the Tony Award.
Oh, yeah, because he needs one more, sure.
Yeah, well, you see what happens. His wife, supermodel Chrissy Teigen, expressed her pride at being with the sexiest man. Nathan Teigen tweeted, "It is an honor," while changing her bio to reflect the achievement.
Don't worry, Michael. You'll get him next year. And if there were an award for sexiest voice alive, we know who's got that on lock.
Yes, but Mad Magazine is now defunct. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I could do a mean fold-in, though. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Nathan.
What, you sexy? All right, Michael, thank you. It's 6:50 on Wall Street. We are live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studios. Time to check what's going on in D.C. now. Among the top stories, Fed Chairman Jerome Powell testifying before the Joint Economic Committee of Congress. We'll have full coverage beginning at 11 a.m. Wall Street time. President Trump hosting Turkish President Erdogan at the White House for the first time since the incursion into northeastern Syria. And the House setting up a vote on a stopgap spending bill that would punt the deadline for a government shutdown to 5 days before Christmas. Also making news, of course, this morning, the impeachment investigation now hours away from shifting into the public phase. Greg Vallier, Chief U.S. Policy Strategist at AGF Investments, is with us now. The hearings in closed-door session, Greg, haven't done much to move markets. Do you expect that to change, though, as the hearings go before the cameras?
No, I don't, Nathan. I think this is one of the stories that perhaps is not well appreciated, and that is that for the financial markets, Robert Mueller made no difference. I think the impeachment hearings will make no difference. It's more important today to hear what Fed Chairman Powell has to say.
Right. So what would change your view? What would it take for these hearings to make an impact on investors?
It would take something new, a new bombshell. Maybe there's more on tape. Maybe there are more witnesses like John Bolton who could make a big difference. But for now, it could be gripping drama, and if you've got tons and tons of time to wade into all of these issues, it could be high drama. But this, to me, does not affect the markets.
Given a lot of attention be on these hearings today, do you expect that could take some investor focus away from what Chairman Powell has to say? Is he going to be able to cut through with headlines when this impeachment saga is going on?
Well, we'll see. I think Powell's going to make it clear that the Fed is finished with its easing for now. There have been many Fed officials in the last couple of weeks who have indicated maybe they shouldn't have moved in October. Maybe it wasn't necessary. But as far as the hearings go, no, I think this is going to slog on until almost Christmas time. There'll probably be a vote to impeach right around the holidays, and then there'll be a trial that's going to last at least a couple of months. But I think the outcome is preordained. He will be acquitted by the Senate.
In the meantime, though, what do you expect to come out of these hearings as they go before the cameras later on this week and into next week? How do you assess the strategy on either side of the political aisle?
Good point. First of all, there's a mountain of evidence, I think, that makes it clear there was a quid pro quo and that Trump did something improper. What is in dispute is whether he did anything that goes to the level of high crimes and misdemeanors that would warrant impeachment. So for the Democrats, they're hoping if this drags on, it will weaken Trump going into the 2020 election. For the Republicans, there's a hope that eventually the public will get weary of this.
That has sort of digests or encapsulates the strategy, or at least the talking point that we've heard from Republicans, that they see the president's interactions with Ukraine as being improper, but not necessarily impeachable. Do you see that holding up as we head further into these hearings?
Yeah, I really do, Nathan. Again, unless there's some new bombshell from Bolton, I think when you look at the Senate, you're going to have at least 20 Republican defectors to convict the president. At the most, I see 3 or 4, maybe not even that many. So I don't think it's going to change the basic narrative.
Does it change the narrative in terms of Senate Republicans who are coming up for re-election next year? Are they people to watch as these proceedings go forward?
Well, to my shock, even people like Lamar Alexander, a moderate Republican who's not seeking re-election, is indicating he doesn't see anything that is impeachable. So no, I don't think there's going to be a tidal wave against the president when the trial ends sometime in the spring. I think the odds are still very, very high that he will be acquitted.
And there's been a lot of consternation when it comes to House Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff conducting these hearings behind closed doors for so many weeks. Now that it's coming out into the open, do you think that Chairman Schiff can conduct these open proceedings fairly?
Well, he's going to get a ton of criticism from Republicans about selective leaks and the way this has been conducted. I think they're going to talk about the process not being fair. But that's all going to get lost in the fog of this battle. You know, my bottom line, Nathan, is that if you want Trump out, vote him out. I don't think that this process is going to oust him.
And when you talk about the prospect of how this affects the 2020 election, what is the impact on Joe Biden, particularly given that he's so much of the focus for Republicans on this?
Personally, I think Biden's had a pretty good week or two. He did well in a town hall earlier this week. He's moved into the lead again in New Hampshire. I think that he is still a favorite. There's a lot of other things to come over the next few weeks, but I think that Biden is in fairly good shape right now.
Greg Valliere, always good to get your insights. We'll leave it there for now. Greg Valliere is Chief U.S. Policy Strategist at AGF Investments. Again, the House public impeachment hearings begin at 10 a.m. Wall Street time. We will have full coverage for you here on Bloomberg Radio. Karen.
Nathan, thank you. It is 6:56 on Wall Street. It's time now for the Bloomberg Small Business Report, and here's John Tucker.
Small businesses, the big tech guys, want you. Facebook and Google are intensifying their efforts to gain traction with local businesses. Along with Yelp, they're competing for the $149 billion U.S. market for local ads. Google, Facebook, and Snapchat are deploying more technologies to take advantage of location-targeted advertising. They're trying to crack the code on how to lure spending from traditional media. Facebook aims to spur business-to-consumer conversations via Messenger and boasts more than 70 million active business pages. Google's local business plans will likely center on maps. Snapchat is offering geo-fenced advertisements and its Context Cards product, providing information on local businesses. And Google hosts its own native reviews, while the search giant's local guide rewards program for frequent reviewers is boasting more than 30 million contributors. And that's the Bloomberg Small Business Report.
All right, John Tucker, thank you. And again, we've been watching this Google story. It is planning to offer checking accounts to consumers, that according to the Wall Street Journal, which says the company is planning to launch its financial services product next year. Futures are lower. S&P futures down 12 points this morning. Dow futures down 115. NASDAQ futures down 40. 10-year Treasury up 17/30 seconds, yield 1.87%. And the yield on the 2-year, 1.62%. And NYMEX crude oil is falling. Bloomberg Surveillance is straight ahead with with Tom Keene, Jonathan Farrell, and Lisa Abramowitz. For Nathan Hager, I'm Karen Moscow, and this is Bloomberg.
Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can feel your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
At TUI, we can help you find the perfect getaway for two. We fly to over 70 destinations worldwide, so wherever you have in mind, we'll help you get there. Book now and choose from thousands of holidays under $399 per person and pay £0 deposit when paying with direct debit. Book online or in store with one of our travel experts. At TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's and put you in the middle. Offer available on selected holidays for a limited time and subject to availability. Booking T's and C's apply. At all protected.
World 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
American economic power and future depends on trade deals.
In many of these countries, we've still seen people struggling.
Finance.
We're in this vortex of uncertainty. These big companies, they just sometimes lack focus.
Investment.
The markets have become a little bit too addicted to the Fed.
Timing the market is just so difficult.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell on Bloomberg Radio.
From New York City, for our audience worldwide, good morning. Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance. Coming up on the program, equity markets heading lower. Another day passing without a phase one trade deal. President Trump keeping an agreement in play, taking another swipe at the Federal Reserve as Chair Powell takes center stage in Washington, addressing the Joint Economic Committee. From the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio, hello Wednesday. Here is your Wednesday morning price action. A little bit of risk aversion out there with equity futures down 0.4% on the S&P 500, lower by a little more than 11 points. In the bond market, treasuries with a bid, yields heading south. We're down 6 basis points on a 10-year to 187. On a 2-year note, 163 and coming in 3 basis points. And in foreign exchange, just a little peek into G10 for you. Euro dollar totally unchanged. Somebody outperformance coming from the Kiwi, the New Zealand dollar, the Swiss franc, and a Japanese yen. Mr. Keene, how are you doing?
I'm looking good. I'm looking at the adverb on the screen here, which explains in 6 basis points the president looking at substantially, the presidential adverb, substantially higher tariffs. October
11th, this was the President of the United States in the Oval Office with Vice Premier Leo Ha. We have come to a deal pretty much, subject to getting it written. It'll take probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or 5 weeks. That's 5 weeks ago Friday. We still don't have a deal on paper.
Substantially. I don't know what that means. I don't know what the mathematics of that is, but, finally it's a pause. I mean, I looked at the chart, log chart, SPX. It's basically a moonshot from the first week of October, and today's sort of a pause.
We have stalled. Lisa Abramowitz with us as well in here in New York City. And Lisa, I just wonder whether we're starting to test the patience of some people out there. It's close, but it's still not here.
Well, if you look at credit, it's very much risk on. And so if you look at credit as a leading indicator, then perhaps people might be losing patience with it. It's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. But risk on is still sort of the bias underneath the market right now.
The people next door, vet bills barking all the time. They got a cat named Beta, and Beta is just out of control, like ripping up the couch. Beta's all the rage right now.
How did they get Beta versus vet bill?
I don't know. The guy used to run a hedge fund. He blew up. But I look at the hedge fund story that Bloomberg has out today about somebody's modeling up 25%. And as you mentioned with Lisa Shallett, brilliant yesterday at Morgan Stanley.
She's fantastic.
It's pile on the beta. That's the call.
Lisa Shallett at Morgan Stanley.
Should we explain what beta is?
The relationship to the broader market, the higher the beta, the higher returns you get.
Fair on the Greek letters.
Should we move on? Should we get Michael Sharp into this conversation? Market Field Asset Management Chairman. Michael, great to see you.
Nice to be here.
Let's talk about that. Lisa Shallard of Morgan Stanley saying, I want a high beta trade related to that trade story, related to global growth bottoming out, and I want it out of Europe, out of international markets. Does that resonate with you?
Yes. I said to you last time we spoke, but I thought that Brexit also matters a great deal. But I think we're heading towards a period in which our geopolitical conflicts are put on hold, and I think the deep pessimism of the summer is being reversed back to a more normal, reasonable view of the world.
We've had a huge sentiment shift in the last couple of months. The debate that I keep hearing again and again over the last couple of weeks, just how much oxygen is left in this big rotation into cyclical trades. How much oxygen is left? What's your time horizon for this to play out, Michael?
Months. It's been at least 18 months in which you've had this sort of anti-cyclical trade in place, and for certain things like emerging markets, they've chronically underperformed for 8 years and counting. So I think this is the start of a pretty important change. I think a lot of what you saw September, October was simply short covering, and only now are you starting to see people start to engage their long books.
Dr. Scholl, you, of course, with your claim at Oscar Grusso over the years that there's an international view here. The great debate John Ferrer and I are hearing is the idea of stay in U.S. or buy international. Where are you on that? And if it is international, what flavor?
I think global developed, again, people were sort of chronically pessimistic about that. I think Japan quietly is having a reasonable cycle. I think Japan is having something of a domestic revolution. It's unlocked its female population and has a participation rate of more than 50%, which doesn't sound like much, but it's a lot for Japan. So, I think Japan has been consistently underestimated, and that's a good starting point. I'm okay with Europe. And as far as EM's concerned, I'm of the view that the Chinese economy has slowed mostly because of domestic reasons. And it is within their power to re-accelerate it if they feel like it.
Should we unlock Lisa?
I knew as soon as I saw your face, unlock our female population.
I'm steering so clear of this conversation.
It was so clear when
you two have got the next 10 minutes.
She's unlocking. Go ahead.
Oh, I just knew it. I saw the twinkle in your eye, and I said, "Oh, this is going straight south." Well, I do have to wonder though, when you talk about the developed world, how much has the trade skirmish held back asset appreciation versus the sort of new normal that people talk about, the Japanification, if you will, pre the female population becoming unlocked?
Yes.
How real is that?
Look, I think there is certainly truth to the central idea that Europe is sort of sclerotic and doesn't grow in the same way as the United States, and I think its equity indexes have suffered because they don't have a lot of technology in it. So, all of those things are true, but it's also true that by the end of August, people were ridiculously pessimistic about where the global economy was going, including and especially Europe.
Well, let's talk about that. How do you want to allocate to that story? Because if you do it at the index level in Europe right now, just looking at the Stock 600, the highest weighting on the Stock 600, healthcare, at almost 15% of the index. Do I want to allocate capital to Europe at the index level, the broader index level?
I think it's better to allocate it at the index level than not to allocate it at all. I think the first money that goes back in when you have a rotation like this does happen at the index level. So I'm not against the index level, but I think for those able to do more work, I think the more cyclical portions of Europe are interesting.
Well, let's talk about that. Does that include European banks?
European banks are essentially a play on interest rates. They've become entirely captured by macro flows, and I think people spend a great deal of time talking about the state of the banking system. It's really your view on rates. If you think European rates are going up, you could short the books all, or you could go long European banks. I don't think there'd be a great deal of difference.
What about German automakers?
Again, I think people got too pessimistic. I think
So you're buying German automakers?
I am not buying German automakers, because I have lots of other cyclicality in my portfolio, but I probably wish I did a few weeks ago.
The great parsing here, and this goes back to your work over the years, Michael, on commodities and the ability to make money in commodity or to not lose money in commodities. What do you do within a global commodity disinflation and outright deflation? How do you reposition there?
Well, I think it's all supply driven. Really, the commodity story is a combination of supply driven and financial flows being very negative over recent years. We haven't yet seen sort of key inflection points in something like copper. I think that is sort of a one negative macro trade which has stubbornly stayed in place. I think, to me, the biggest questions within commodities is gold simply a safe haven, in which case it's not interesting, or is gold in fact just sensitive to the growth of global liquidity, in which case, which I think it is, in which case gold still is interesting in the mid-1400s.
One final question. What do you do? Is the gold bulls are in here at 1500 saying go long gold, and that was an outlier call until it wasn't. Is it still a long gold call by you?
I think so, yeah. I do think you have a bit of a safe haven shakeout. I do think yields go higher and gold goes lower for a period of time. But I think ultimately, we are in a time of excess liquidity, and that's good for gold.
Very good. Michael Schultz, thank you so much.
Microfield
Asset Management, always interesting, fabulous work on the Chinese financial system. We'll do that with him here soon as well. A little weight to the tape where you really see it expresses in the yield. I mean, you have to blow up the real yield on Friday at 1 p.m., don't you?
Do I really, after the bid in the bond market that we're seeing this morning?
6 basis point move. If we get to 8 basis points, whole new show.
187 on a 10-year. Your next stop for this market, 8:30 Eastern. We get some inflation data in the United States of America. Then there's some key times through the day, Tom. Chairman Powell speaking at 11 a.m. The impeachment hearings begin at 10. And then the joint press conference between the leaders of the United States and Turkey that you've talked about, Tom, 3:10 Eastern time.
Within all the choices today, that's what I featured. This is an extraordinary visit by Mr. Erdogan. The editorial in the Washington Post saying how alone the president was on this in Washington. And I'll be honest, in terms of body language, it's maybe the most fascinating press conference of the Trump administration. I could be wrong on that, but I'm guessing.
Interesting that military conflict, Tom, has sort of faded into the background over the last couple of weeks.
Except for the Russian missiles.
At least domestically, to be clear. Domestically here in the United States.
And I brought this up with Kevin Cirilli, and of course Sound On tonight, 5 p.m. I brought this up with Kevin Cirilli, and that who are they speaking to? Well, Erdogan clearly is speaking to a sharply divided Turkey on his future, but who's the president speaking to today?
A story for a little bit later this morning. Equity futures are lower. We're down 0.4% on the S&P 500, down around about 12 points. Nice bit into the bond market, particularly at the longer end of the curve. 10-year yields coming in 6 basis points to 187 on a 30-year bond. Your yield coming in 7 basis points to 2.348%. From New York, you're listening to Bloomberg Surveillance on Bloomberg Radio.
Let's get a check on what's happening outside the world. We've got business. We have our own Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Tom. The public phase of the impeachment inquiry starts this morning. The closed doors of the Trump impeachment investigation will start when the gavel strikes, and America will see what for themselves the first time about President Donald Trump's actions toward Ukraine and consider whether they are, in fact, impeachable offenses. 2 seasoned diplomats, William Taylor and George Kent, will testify today. Tensions in Hong Kong are reaching a boiling point as anti-government protesters attempt to shut down the city. Some are arming themselves with bows and arrows, and police have been trying to break up the crowds with the threat of rubber bullets and tear gas. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts from more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Tom.
And Michael Barr, thanks so much. Wall Street Journal says Google wants your checking account. They're going to get a plan out to do Google checking, something along that line. Futures negative 12. This is Bloomberg. Stay with us.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Battery is running low. Take the kids to Santa's Grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We hunt in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
It's never nice missing out. But millions are doing just that by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB is here to help. They offer interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. So if you're one of the millions of people who are missing out, talk to TSB. Terms and conditions apply.
The world is a noisy place, but whether I'm here or here, my phone calls are always loud and clear on my Doro 6620. Hi, love. Yes, I can hear you perfectly. I'm 10 minutes away. Get your Doro 6620 from Amazon, Tesco, and O2 today.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Stations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Taylor Riggs.
Now, TransferWise is one of Europe's largest financial technology startups, helping people and businesses move money across borders. Now the company is expanding into the U.S. and Asian markets. TransferWise CEO Christo Carmon discussed the company's growth strategy with Bloomberg's Rashad Salamat and David Ingalls at Singapore's third annual FinTech Festival. Take a listen.
We're now moving about $5.5 billion on behalf of individuals and businesses cross borders. So that's the biggest part of what we do is we help people and businesses and now even banks move money cross border. This is just the beginnings. And now we're also offering international banking services in about 20 countries, including all of Europe We launched our borderless accounts with a debit card in the United States about 3 months ago. 2 months ago, we launched in Australia and New Zealand. And actually last month, we rolled out our multi-currency debit cards in Singapore. We're starting to cover Asia with an international banking proposition as well. And it's seeing a good take-up here.
Are you lending money out at the moment, or do you have any plans to lend money out?
No, we don't lend. And in terms of kind of regulatory difference, that's the main difference.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, 7:17 on Wall Street. And Bloomberg Daybreak is out on customer terminals, bringing you all the news you need to start your day. It's brought to you by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Learn why the world's most sophisticated advisory firms and broker-dealers rely on Pershing to help them improve profitability, create efficiency, attract talent, and manage risk at Pershing.com. Now let's check the latest headlines with Hannah George at the Bloomberg Daybreak desk. Good morning, Hannah.
Good morning, Karen. Jerome Powell may try to steer markets on the rate path when he addresses Congress today. The Fed chairman's assessment of policy is unlikely to have changed much since his October 30th press conference. The impeachment inquiry goes public today. We'll hear testimony from the top envoy to Ukraine, William Taylor, and State Department official George Kent. The stormy US-Turkey relationship resurfaces as President Trump and Erdogan meet at the White House. It's their first meeting since the diplomatic spat over Turkey's offensive in northern Syria. And Google is denying misusing data from one of the biggest healthcare providers. The company says it only accesses the data in question to build a new search tool for Ascension's hospital network. For all the news you need to start your day, check out Daybreak on your mobile phone on the Bloomberg Anywhere app. Karen.
All right, Hannah George, thank you. S&P futures down 12 points. Dow futures down 112. NASDAQ futures down 38. And NYMEX crude oil down 0.7% or 39 cents at $56.41 a barrel. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. Futures at negative 12. Okay, John, not that I would go to London before Christmas, and there would be no reason to go to London before Christmas, except there's like an election, right?
You are going to London before Christmas.
There's an election.
We're there for the election.
There, green office. Of course, we could go to Claridge's, seek out distinctive luxury gifts, or drop in for afternoon tea with a decidedly festive feel. Whatever the holidays mean to you, Claridge's will make your celebrations utterly unforgettable.
See, our manager right now is on maternity leave, and typically what happens after you and I go away is she gets my expense report, and my expenses are, 10% of your expenses? And there's a reason for that, because 10%. You go to Claridge's, and
got that right. Alicia Levine with us on the watch in London right now with BNY Mellon. She's not going to Claridge's. She's looking at investment strategy for BNY Mellon clients in London as well. Alicia, tell us the spirit of London right now. You and I are foreign. What is the election spirit you glean?
So people here are pensive, and they're tired, and they want it to be done.
That's what John Farrow says exactly.
Yeah, they're distraught. They're tired of the conversation, and at this point, it feels as if they'd accept any outcome just to be done with the conversation. It's been 3.25 years with endless debate, with endless headlines, and so that's the feeling here. Lucky for the people of the UK, their election cycle is much, much shorter than ours is. And so thank goodness for them, their election is in 4 weeks. And for us, we've got another, 11 months of this, which, if we all survive it would be great.
Do you go long United Kingdom multinationals off of all this gloom and pensiveness?
So that's a great question. And the short, clean answer is more yes than no. So the answer is yes. If you look at asset flow data since June of 2016, since Brexit, there's been a massive outflow from UK equities, massive outflow. When you see that kind of one-sided trade, it is typically very profitable to take the other side of that trade. I think any resolution of the uncertainty will lead to further investment here and ultimately growth. You may have a couple of quarters where it's all flat. Both parties here, both Labour and the Tories, seem to want to spend a lot of money in a fiscal boost. So I think that really the UK equities look very interesting here, and I think it's time to build a position.
Well, Alicia, let's talk about it a little bit more. Let's add some weight to this conversation. How important is the sterling dimension to this conversation, and what's your basic foreign exchange assumption?
So the thing about sterling is that the entire Brexit will be expressed through sterling. So in the very small event of a hard Brexit, I mean, it has not been fully taken off the table, but mostly off the table. You're probably going to see about $1.10 to $1.15 on that. A negotiated and more integrated Brexit gets you closer to $1.40. And so right now, what you have priced into sterling is a negotiated Brexit, and that's what's priced in. So if you are betting on either way, that's what you're getting a 10% on either side.
So you would be exposed to foreign exchange going into this move. This wouldn't be hedged into UK equities coming out of the United States. I just want a better idea of this for our listeners that might be based here in America, thinking about allocating some capital to that story, Alicia.
So I think that, in terms of multinationals, I think the direction of sterling is higher. So to that, you probably want to hedge a little bit, but direction of sterling is higher, certainly. But I think that it's been such a terrible conversation for investment and for corporates here that it has to turn. It has to turn. The certainty is going to move it.
How long do you think this trade could go on? How much conviction is there behind this trade?
So right now, you have, aside from today's one of those risk-off days, and so it just feel ugly, and it's going to be ugly, and we're going to all want to go home early, but or normal time here in the UK. But the thing is that what's happening now is you have a reversion to the mean in terms of valuations. So you have global 10-year yields off their lows almost across the globe, even as central banks are cutting, right? Which essentially tells you the central bank impulse to cut has more or less been successful because you've re-steepened curves everywhere, particularly here in the U.S.
Right.
And the dollar has broken through the 200-day moving average on the downside, suggesting there's some movement down, and that's very positive for global assets. And there's some evidence of bottoming. The question is, are you just going to get a reversion to the mean in terms of valuations? In which case, you do want to buy EM, you do want to buy Europe, because they're woefully undervalued compared to U.S. valuations. Or is this really the next leg of the bull market, the next leg of cyclical global growth? It feels like it's the latter, but you really have to see the fundamental data come through. Either way, the trade is there. Either way, it's there.
Alicia, thank you so much. Safe travels. Alicia Levine, BNY Mellon. We're thrilled that she comes to us from our studios in London. What's great to hear people listen. I mentioned Claridge just because Alicia's there. Riley from St. Louis emails in. Riley said, thank you, Riley, for listening in St. Louis. She says the fumoir is the fumoir is what she likes at Claridge.
How much is that?
I have no idea. It's like 1929.
I'll see you at McDonald's, Liverpool Street.
I've been there.
I know you will.
Number 2 value meal.
I look forward to getting back there with you. I'm going to take a photo this time around just to prove it to everyone. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. The stock futures are pointing to a move lower at the open. Investors have turned their attention toward trade and the timing of a Phase 1 trade deal. President Donald Trump said yesterday that China is dying to make a trade deal with the U.S., and the first step of a broader agreement was close to being completed. But he also threatened increased tariffs if that initial step is not reached. Investors will also monitor Washington, D.C. Impeachment proceedings in the House go public. And Fed Chair Jay Powell will address the Joint Economic Committee of Congress today. Tesla has won permission to begin mass production of cars at its China factory, navigating a final obstacle to selling locally built vehicles in the world's biggest electric vehicle market. This is Tesla's first factory outside of the U.S. And as soon as today, Apple plans to debut a new MacBook Pro laptop with a larger screen and revamped keyboard, the first major update since a redesign 3 years ago. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's BABBEL.com.
Hey, whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
This is the sound of Helen and Peter, hiking to the fairy tale fortress high above the winter wonderland below. Or it would be, if they hadn't stopped at the first beer house they came to. There it is, Helen and Peter. There's your Incredible. Fly from London Gatwick to Salzburg from £29 each way. With British Airways, Incredible is within reach. Terms and conditions apply. Limited availability and dates. Fare quoted is each way based on a return. cba.com/Gatwick for details.
The world is a noisy place, but whether I'm here or here, my phone calls are always loud and clear on my Doro 6620. Hi, love. Yes, I can hear you perfectly. I'm 10 minutes away. Get your Doro 6620 from Amazon, Tesco, and O2 today.
At Asda this Christmas, treat them to a gift or two, or three, with 3 for 2 on a wide range of beauty and toiletry gift sets, from Dove, Lynx, Bayliss and Harding, and many more. Asda, let's make Christmas extra special. Selected stores and lines subject to availability. Individual prices £1 to £20, cheapest item free.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and come to the shops with me. We can get 10% off 2 big shops a month with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and 10% off your favourite Tesco brands, including F&F in-store every day. All for $7.99 a month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online today. £200 max spend per shop. In-store spend only. Club Card app required. Exclusions apply. See online for details.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio, 2 hours away from the opening bell. The news you need to know this hour. U.S. equity futures lower ahead of data on inflation and remarks from the Fed Chair Jay Powell. The government issues the Consumer Price Index 1 hour from now, and the Fed Chairman testifies before Congress at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Crude lower for a third straight day as the International Energy Agency predicts global demand will peak around 2030. It cites the use of electric cars and slowing demand from China as the main drivers. Right now, Brent crude is lower by 0.9%. Call it 1% at $61 and around about 50 cents. And finally, on the corporate front, Google planning to offer checking accounts to consumers. That's according to the Wall Street Journal, which says the tech company plans to launch a financial services product at some point next year. A little bit more on that a little bit later. Let's get you some headlines from elsewhere, shall we? Let's say good morning to Michael Barr. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good morning, Tom. Good morning, Lisa. Americans will get their first look at witnesses' testimony against President Trump when the House Intelligence Committee begins to hold public impeachment hearings today. The hearings will start with William Taylor, the current top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, and State Department official George Kent. Dozens have been injured and hundreds arrested as tensions in Hong Kong have reached a boiling point. Anti-government demonstrators have attempted to shut down the city. One protester, when asked, "How does it end?" replied, "It doesn't."
The only thing they do is to condemn the so-called violence, the protest, without fulfilling any demands, any wish of the people. This will not end, and this will go on forever. That's my view.
Testimony in the colorful trial of Roger Stone wrapped up Tuesday with a top Trump campaign official telling jurors that Stone contacted other campaign officials about hacked emails damaging to Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. Stone has denied wrongdoing. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Jonathan.
Michael Barr, thank you, sir. It's time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here is John Stashower.
John, as the losses mount, the seat gets hotter for Knicks coach David Fizdale. His boss, team president Steve Mills, recently held an impromptu presser to say he was disappointed in the team's play. Last night's 120-102 loss in Chicago won't help Fizdale's cause to keep his job. Bulls rookie Kobe White hit 7 3-pointers in the fourth quarter, finished with 27 points. Nets blew a 15-point second-half lead, lost at Utah 119-114. Kyrie Irving had 27 but missed 20 of his 30 shots. Rangers a good win at the Garden, 3-2 in overtime over Pittsburgh rookie Capo Caco, 2 goals, including the game winner. St. John's went to 3-0, 74-61 over New Hampshire. LJ Figueroa scored 25 on a huge upset. Number 1 team of the nation, Kentucky, lost at home to Evansville, came in as a 25-point underdog. Close vote for American League Manager of the Year. It went to Minnesota's Rocco Baldelli. The Yankees' Aaron Boone got the same number of first-place votes, but 4 writers didn't even have Boone among the top 3. The Cy Youngs go out tonight. We'll see if Mets ace Jacob deGrom can be a repeat winner. With a Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. John
Stashower, thank you very much. John with the sports day. You've had the news. Let's get you some price action this Wednesday, shall we? A record high close, just shy of 1 in yesterday's session at the close. Today, futures lower. Equity futures down by 11 points on the S&P 500. We are weaker by 1/3 of 1%. That's the story in the equity market. Here's the story in the bond market. Treasuries with a bid. Yields come in 7 basis points to 235 on a 30-year. On a 10-year note, we come in 6 basis points to 187. And in foreign exchange, euro dollar going absolutely nowhere. This is Bloomberg.
From our world headquarters in New York, good morning, everyone. John Farrow, Tom Key, Lisa Bramo, it's Bloomberg Surveillance. Thank you for being with us. Bit of a pause today. Lots of news flow. Chairman Powell, 11 a.m. this morning on Bloomberg Radio. The Bloomberg NJIT STEM report brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology. They are ranked number 1 in the nation for student upward economic mobility. Learn more at njit.edu. Here's Bob Boone.
Tom, Jonathan, good morning. Here's what's making news in science, technology, engineering, and math. News on the tech workforce today. Microsoft released a report that showed the company has hired more women and minorities. Still, it highlighted persistent diversity challenges facing the world's largest software maker, with women comprising just 28% of its total workforce. Dell, meantime, announced a goal to make half its global workforce female by 2030, one of a raft of pledges meant to foster greater diversity and sustainability at the personal computer maker. And fresh evidence of escalating tension between Google's management and personnel engaged in labor-related activism. Google confirmed it fired an employee for leaking information to the media and placed 2 others on leave for allegedly violating company policies. This after Bloomberg News inquired about 2 employees being placed on leave who had participated in activism at Google. The suspensions have prompted worker claims that Google is punishing people who have taken a stand against management. The development is the latest sign of disharmony after a tumultuous month in which some workers accused Google managers of trying to censor discussions about labor rights. Employees say one dispute concerned a mandatory Chrome browser tool that was recently installed on workers' computers. Some employees raised concerns it was an internal surveillance tool designed to monitor their attempts to organize protests. It would automatically report staffers who create a calendar event with more than 10 rooms or 100 participants, according to an employee memo that outlined the concerns. A Google representative said the extension was merely an attempt to reduce calendar spam. And that's the Bloomberg NJIT STEM report. Tom, Jonathan.
Baboon, thank you so much. 5 things you need to know to start your day. We got 6, actually. Portfolio analyst. It's always powered by Interactive Brokers. No.
It's not.
Portfolio analyst powered by Interactive Brokers. Savvy investors use portfolio analysts to create a consolidated view of their finances and check the health of their complete financial portfolio. Sign up for free at portfolioanalyst.com. That's portfolioanalyst.com. This just did your weather report from Afterthought. Lisa, help out. My kneecaps, they're gone. They're so cold. It's cold out there.
Oh, poor kneecaps. This is Afterthought?
Yeah, Afterthought. I think she's got to get the
It is freezing. By definition, it's freezing.
It's cold. It's cold out there. We all say warm today.
Seven things, because we now have the weather report.
Okay, well, no, that was the weather report. Substantially tariffs. John, is he going to give us higher tariffs?
That was the president yesterday at the Economic Club of New York. They're going to be raised very substantially if we don't make a deal. Big if. The president also saying we're close. A significant phase 1 deal could happen. It could happen soon. He said 5 weeks ago Friday.
Oh, this is the second time you've gone around on this.
That on October 11th, we have an agreement. We need to put it in writing. It could take up to 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks Friday. We still don't have a deal on paper.
Here's the thing. Is President Trump really going to give up the cudgel of tariffs? I mean, he's not going to want to. That is his tool. So if he doesn't have that threat on the table, what's going to bring China to the table?
That's a tool to extract concessions. So we need to see what the concessions might be. None of this is clear to me whatsoever.
International equities. Michael Schur with us, Lisa Shallow of Morgan Stanley, Jim Paulson yesterday from Minneapolis. What a debate over, is this finally the time to get on board?
If you think global growth has bottomed out, if you think trade risks have receded and you want to get leverage to that story, you buy international. We've had a massive move already. Let's be clear about that. We have had a 20% rally off the August lows on European financials. Eurozone banks have had a big, big move. I think the debate now is whether there is much more oxygen left in that trade, given that for much of the last 10 years, Europe has been a graveyard for optimism.
The Capitol will be distracted at 10 a.m. by the impeachment hearings, and then Chairman Powell will slide in. It's always, what will he try not to say? What's the thing he does not want to say?
I don't think he wants to bring December in play whatsoever. I think he wants to reaffirm the message. Everyone seems to be on the same. Everyone seems to be singing from the same hymn sheet. We're on pause, and they've done a pretty good job of making the rest of this year quite boring to a lot of market participants, at least as far as the Fed is concerned.
Although
Go ahead,
President Trump coming out yesterday and saying that he thinks that they should lower rates further. Why don't we have negative rates? Show me the money. And it would be interesting to see whether he gets asked about that and whether he responds.
Yeah, my problem with the microeconomics or the macroeconomics of the president, he didn't read Fibonacci, I don't think. And, you know, there's some serious ramifications to this negative interest rate.
You think there's a bit of confusion between credit and sovereign rates?
Small difference there. Lisa, this is painful because the tots, it's desperation time, isn't it?
Do you want to explain to Lisa who the tots are?
The tots
I know who
are
the
a team
tots
in
are.
London, and they built a ginormous new stadium. It's like.
But Tom is the only one that calls them the tots.
Okay, right. Okay. Everybody else calls them
Spurs.
Okay, but they're going to go out and get a player that Manchester United said they didn't want from the Netherlands?
Well, Manchester United paid about $25 million for Memphis Depay going back, I think 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And he was a total flop. He was terrible.
Well, in what way was he terrible?
He just didn't perform very well. Every time he came on, he was pretty active on the bench. He'd come off the bench. I don't want to talk about that, to be honest with you, Tom. 50 million is what he's said to go for if Spurs do get him. So Spurs said to be interested. The latest reports, according to
this time in the season, is that like OMG? We're in
well, because we're going into the winter transfer window.
Okay.
At the turn of the year, there's another opportunity to get a little bit more talent if you have some weaknesses in your team.
Could the Tots get relegated down?
No, I think they're going to be okay, Tom. Okay. They're playing our song. Listen to that. It's been a while.
We're bonding.
How romantic.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture. And there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population? And how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers? Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobily impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at seic.com/seize change.
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Next, we donned our skates for Bath on Ice. I'm a natural. Didn't have to hold on to anything or anyone. There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
I can find and fund my car, from a Mini to a Jaguar.
Feel good car buying from findandfundmycar.com is the place where you can find quality used cars from trusted dealers rated by you, and where you can fund your car with finance to fit your budget. It's feel good car buying, all in one place.
Shouldn't be a carry on, choose findandfundmycar.com.
1 in 10 Londoners surveyed said they'll give more to charity in the next 12 months. Are you one of them? At CAF, we help generous people like you support their favourite charities by making giving simple. And we provide charities with the tools they need to perform at their best. So together, we can make a bigger difference for our communities. We're a charity and a champion for better giving. We are CAF, and we make giving count. Visit cafonline.org to find out more.
Imagine yourself 50 years from now. Have you made London proud? Society predicts you won't have done much. We predict the opposite. Because we see what you could be. There are army reserves getting fit while changing the world, and they could use someone like you. Find where you belong. At your local Army Careers Centre. Rochester Row, Victoria, London. Your army needs you.
Just because you travel doesn't mean you can't keep your routine. The more obstacles travel puts between us and our well-being, the more we strive to sleep well. At Westin Hotels and Resorts, we're focused on empowering your well-being. With our award-winning Heavenly Bed, you can get the restorative sleep you need and meet the challenges of the day head-on. Don't leave your well-being behind. We give you the choice to get up or to rise. Search Westin online to find out more. Westin, let's rise.
4 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
The first public hearing in the impeachment inquiry gets underway this morning with a seasoned U.S. diplomat, William Taylor, who says the Trump administration withheld aid to Ukraine over political investigations. Suzanne Malveaux explains the unique format created by Chairman Adam Schiff.
It's going to be 45 minutes for Schiff. He may use his attorney as well. And then for the Republicans, 45 minutes. And then each one of the committee members will have 5 minutes. Democrats believe that this will paint a story, paint a picture, and make their case for a possible impeachment.
Much of America experiencing the lowest temperature since the depths of last winter today, but meteorologist Chad Myers tells us this Arctic blast won't last forever.
Today is the bottom. This is the lowest and the coldest it gets. We warm up from here, but temperatures are below zero in some spots with wind chill factors today.
President Trump's meeting with Turkey's President Erdogan today comes with the countries at odds over Turkey's attacks on Syrian Kurds, a former U.S. ally, and its warming relations with Russia, an American foe. I'm Michael Toscano.
Why all the top-tier experts? Because business is not a magic trick.
Give us a sense of the economic backdrop.
Bloomberg Markets.
Which financial records are these?
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow, and I'm watching this headline crossing the Bloomberg right now. Abbott Labs naming Robert Ford to succeed Miles White as Chief Executive Officer. Again, that headline just crossing the Bloomberg. U.S. stock index futures, they're lower this morning. Stocks in Europe and Asia are as well, as investors digest President Trump's latest comments on trade, as well as ongoing unrest in Hong Kong. And we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down 11 points, Dow futures down 103, NASDAQ futures down 35, the DAX in Germany's down 0.7%. 10-year Treasury up 16/30 seconds, yield 1.87%, yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil down 0.6% or 31 cents at 56.48 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.9% or $12.70 at 14.6640 an ounce. The euro 1.1006 against the dollar, British pound 1.2834, and the yen at 108.85. Google planning to offer checking accounts to consumers. That according to the Wall Street Journal, which says the tech company plans to launch its financial services product next year. And Alibaba Group says it's filed a listing application with the Hong Kong Stock Exchange in connection with a proposed secondary listing, together with a Hong Kong initial public offering and a global offering. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Karen, thanks so much. Okay, this is what it comes down to. You're in the triple leveraged all cash fund, or maybe you're like, yeah, another year, single digit.
You're just talking
4%,
about yourself again.
6%, 8%. How about somebody that writes a research note, John, with the clarity of saying next 13 months up 13%, double digit, nice solid. This is where we're going to be at the end of 2020. First, second, third sentence of his research note, we're going up double digit. That gets my attention.
Steve Cheveron, Federated Vice President and Equity Strategist. Good morning to you, Steve.
Good morning.
Walk us through it
and
explore it a little bit further. What are you looking for in the next 12 months?
You know, I think in a world that sells you complexity, you have to insist on simplicity. And the words that are written on my whiteboard are, if you cannot put up the recession, you need to shut up about the bear market.
I thought you were just going to say buy stocks.
No, I mean it's not.
That's pretty simple.
No, but I mean, well, if you got a 30-year horizon, that works. But I think that's been the story. We have delayed/canceled the early 2020 recession, and I think that means the bull continues. And if the bull continues, you're going to hit new highs.
Everyone that comes on this program at the moment, at least in the last hour or so, buy Europe, buy international. What do you say back to those people at the moment, Steve?
So Europe's trading at about a 4 multiple turn discount to the U.S. That's its average discount. So, yeah, it's cheaper than the U.S., but the U.S. is a better index. You've got more tech, you've got more biotech, it has higher PE sectors. Where we think there's actually value, and not to use a play on words, is value in the U.S., particularly in the small cap space. So as we think about it, the story in U.S. versus international is really a growth versus value story. S&P is tech, internet retail, and comm services. Euro stocks is banks.
So value over growth, small caps over large caps. But then you went to the S&P 500 and started to talk about the index level at the S&P 500. Yep. So get me to the small caps. I want to understand what you're doing at the small cap level.
Well, I think a good way to make money on the street is to find out those things that everybody knows, but it falls apart when you ask why. Like small caps don't work in late cycle. Why? Do they have a bell? Does it ring when we get close to it? I mean, what does that mean? And I think the reason is...
The cynicism here is because he grew up rooting for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
No. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Yankee fan.
How did you get in here?
Carry on, Steve.
Continue.
We like to win. And so... This is my last time on the show.
For value, by value.
Keep going.
Large cap companies, 90% of their debt is fixed, 10% is floating. Small cap, 50% is floating rate bank debt. So with rates lower and not higher right now versus a year ago, that's a cash flow boost. If the recession is postponed, we think these cyclicals can run. And then you look on both sides. I think small cap growth is fine. Small cap value is increasingly interesting because we've had the yield curve steepen, and there's a lot of banks in that index.
Well, that's what I wanted to do, get away from Star and get towards the sectors. The financials. What is it about the financials beyond just the shape of the yield curve that you like at the moment?
I like the shape of the yield curve.
Is that it? Is that the reason?
He likes keeping it really simple.
No, I mean, I think when you look at the U.S. and you're talking about those kind of small community banks, I think what's interesting about it is, A, the economy looks good, credit quality looks fine, and you've got a little bit more opportunity to run. And let's not forget, return to cash flow, both in terms of buybacks and dividends in this space, is significant. And we think that the next kind of 2 to 3 years for dividend payers is going to look a heck of a lot better than the last 2 or 3 years.
You like tech, right? That's the reason why you like U.S.?
I like growth. I think growth is scarce in the world, and then I think the U.S. has more growth than the S&P.
Where does the growth come from? Where does the next leg of growth come from for the Googles and the Microsofts of the world, given what we've seen this year?
I think you've got a consumer in the U.S., forget about GDP growth at 2%. Consumer spending is still growing near 4%. And like it or not, we're pulling in 150,000 people into the job force each and every day. And I think the consumer continues to remain strong and has demand for product.
Steve, you do prodigious math analysis of how we all underperform.
Yeah.
Right now, we underperforming because we're diversified, as Peter Lynch would say. He worked for a small firm up in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, are we over-diversified right now as we go into your optimistic 2020?
I think we've got too much cash level at this point. I think
that's a really important statement. A lot of people disagree with you on that.
So,
but that's a fear index.
Well,
right?
Think about it this way. The whole purpose of the financial service business is to take people's savings and magnify them by exposing them to the compounding returns of markets. If you had enough savings to fund your lifestyle, your retirement, and your giving goals, why invest? You need that savings to grow. So in our view, the question isn't, when do I take my money and run? It's where do I get the compounding? And cash doesn't compound.
You can't. Okay, with cash, fine. But are we diversified by individual security, bond, or equity, or are we over diversified by sector as well? Because we're overthinking.
I think the concept of diversification needs to be rethought. It's not just about owning every particular asset you possibly can.
Thank you.
I'd much rather see folks pursue diversified return drivers. So, for example, right, within a portfolio, if I'm putting that together for a client, I want to make sure that maybe I have a mix of fundamental managers and quantitative managers. I might want to make sure that I've got a little bit of absolute return and a little bit of beta. I think diversification needs to go beyond just owning asset classes everywhere around the world and having different drivers that work at different times.
One big challenge to this whole growth thesis is that growth is starting to fade when it comes to companies that make no money. And I'm looking right now, DoorDash raising $100 million now, a $13 billion valuation at a time when people are saying that food delivery services have been way overinflated. Yep. Does that worry you?
So I think that is why you need to work with good quality managers who are able to engage in price discovery. Our growth franchise at Federated, the Kaufman franchise, we evaluated upwards of 40 IPOs last quarter, and we invested in 8. That was a lot of shots on goal. I think you have to be careful about the companies that you do invest in. And I think one of the things that happened recently was with WeWork. I think that was healthy. The market didn't clear WeWork. That suggests to me that there is rationality in the market and people are a little bit more discerning. I don't mind that you're not making money today, but I have to see an asset-light business that has a clear pathway to making money. And if not, then I really don't want to touch it.
Where are you trimming right now?
Yeah, so even we had a little bit of cash, at a firm level. So we're looking to trim that. I think as we think about our equity weight, we are interested in the value space. I think if you're in money markets, maybe you're looking to crawl out into the short duration or intermediate duration space. we're not trimming a whole lot right now. I mean, we came into this with the benefit of having been overweight the whole year. So we're not having to chase here, but we do find areas of interest.
So when you're putting additional capital to work, you're just working down the cash balance?
Yes.
It's not trimming from growth and elsewhere, it's just working down a cash balance?
No, I would say this. If you are massively overweight growth and you've been massively underweight value, our view is that the global economy is closer to reacceleration than it is rollover. If that's the case, value can run, and you may want to take a little bit out of your growth, put it in your pocket, and maybe invest in some of the value.
Don't be a stranger. Always really, really interesting. Steve Chiavarone,
cheers, Steve.
Writing really smart stuff for Federated. See that at their website as well. And particularly working in the allocation. Allocation, John, is a misused word. It's really, really, really important, particularly on what you do not do, not what to do. And diversification, which is a brilliant word, way too much diversification.
Should we get to some price action?
We should get to some price action. A little better tape right now, but yields, I mean, is this just off the Trump trade?
We're off the lows on equity futures. We're down a third of 1%. We're down 10 points on the S&P 500. But to your point, Tom, in the bond market, still coming in 6 basis points on a 30-year to 236. I don't want to go all out and say this was the president's address to the Economic Club in New York. It happened midday yesterday, and we still closed just shy of an all-time high in the S&P 500. I do think every additional day that goes by with them telling us we're close to a phase one deal, I think that starts to test people's patience eventually.
There is also this feeling underpinning the market that the natural rate is somewhat lower and that the ceiling may have been reached. So people buying the dip very much.
That's a lower for longer feel, and that's clearly the x-axis is strong. Joyce Chang of J.P. Morgan really emphasized that, John, this morning. She really emphasized that the time extension out 2, 3, and 4 years.
Steve's trying to get away before the commercial break starts so that you don't argue over baseball. Steve, you can run. It's okay. You can get out of it. It's good to see you. In the FX market, euro dollar going absolutely nowhere. A little bit of outperformance from the Swissy and the Japanese yen. The havens performing just a little bit today. Some mild risk aversion. From New York City for our audience worldwide, good morning to you all. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
On driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Waiting for a phone that makes everything look crystal clear, like a brilliant iPhone 8 with Retina display? The wait is over. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event is on. This week, get an iPhone 8 for just $23.49 a month, a saving of £144. Get yours by 17th of November. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £27.49, now £23.49. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
You're stuck indoors, waiting for a delivery.
But you should be at the match with your mates! Get in!
You want to be home when the kids get back from school.
Hey, guys.
But you've got to work late. Again. With Ring Video Doorbell, you can do both. Featuring HD video and two-way talk, you can see, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are, all on your phone. Available at Ring.com and selected retailers.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The Federal Reserve's independence is crucial.
Central banks should be prepared and not presumptuous.
Finance.
In order to grow, you need to innovate.
Global money doesn't like uncertainty.
Investment.
I think the issue in the market is really more about the possibility of a recession in the next couple of years.
I do think we need to get back to where we have always been, the American dream.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. John Farrow and Tom Keene, Bloomberg Surveillance. Lisa Bramowitz with us as well today. Futures -11, Dow Futures -95. Yield is the story. Yield, 1.88%, and a solid rounded down 6 basis points. Lower yields today. The headline into an eventful Washington. We'll get to that in a moment. In the FX market, Nothing's going on for the last 12 weeks. Yen 108.84 right now, churning stronger yen as well. John, help me here. What is the demonstrable thing I should see on my Bloomberg terminal?
See how the market moves, sell 'em, Tom. Look, a little bit of risk aversion. You've covered all the major points. Equities a bit softer, bonds bid, and not much happening in foreign exchange. Your outperformance coming from the haven assets, the Swissy, the Japanese yen.
I looked yesterday. Tom Secunda, one of our great founders, told me, Tom, would you look at OVDV and tell me what you see? And it's the volatility matrix in the XYZ space, in this case, a euro dollar. John, I've never seen it look like that, with an emphasis on never. Flat. There's no vol out there. Nothing in FX.
Job done for the ECB.
My radar's all up. When I see the flatness I saw in that beautiful Bloomberg function, it's an original quiet in foreign exchange. Let's do this. John and I really have talked about, our in-depth coverage of the impeachment hearings, and we wanted to wander by with that. So we dragged in off the street out of Washington Terrence Haynes. He's with Pangea, of course, policy, and he writes blistering detailed pieces on policy. Did you escape Washington to join us in our interactive broker studios just to get away from the impeachment derby?
I decided to go somewhere where it was colder. Actually, that was the deal.
That was good. Well, that'll be good. I love what you say about China tariffs, and we've heard all about this. You've got that key operative word, which you're famous for, which is somebody has to enforce this. Where's the enforceability of whatever? What's it called? Phase one?
Phase one.
Phase one, phase five. Where's enforceability? I don't see it in any discussion.
I don't see it in any discussion either, which leads me to the conclusion that it's real and it's serious. This is law school. They call this a negative evidence problem. And what the United States has wanted all along, fundamentally, is enforceability. They assess that for the last decade or so, the big problem with U.S.-China negotiations has been nothing's enforceable, and therefore China can be let off the hook, et cetera, from their point of view. So what needs to happen fundamentally is enforceability. And so what I've said is I think you get an inflection point here in the next couple of weeks where either you see an enforceable deal of some sort being done, which ought to show markets that there is a positive trajectory here that will continue up if the Chinese agree to this, and it is the Chinese that have to agree to this. But without it, what you're going to get is sort of this cold peace trade war stalemate that's going to continue on for quite a while with no significant tariff diminution, none of that.
So to be clear here, Terry, you think the biggest sticking point to a phase one agreement at this point is not the request to roll back tariffs, but the lack of enforceability?
Absolutely. Enforceability from the United States perspective is the linchpin to doing an entire deal. Without enforceability from the United States perspective, there's no point in doing a deal. To me, the tariff rollback is a bit ephemeral. And what will end up happening is that tariffs will, if there is a good deal from the U.S. perspective, therefore an enforceable deal, there will be some rollback of tariffs, but tariffs aren't going to go away exactly. What the president has said all along, and he's been consistent in this. Now, they have a terrible messaging arm in the White House, and that gets taken as having no message at all, and that's not the case. You just have to look for it. What they've said all along is that they put tariffs on in order to force people to the table. Once they get a deal that they think they like, the tariffs come back off. So what you'll get in a phase one deal is some stopping of future tariffs and maybe a rollback of some existing tariffs, but they're not going to come off completely.
Terry, I want to give you the Wall Street narrative, and then you can give me the Washington, D.C. critique of that narrative. The Wall Street story, the story that we get told day after day after day, is the president needs a deal going into 2020. He'll ultimately give the Chinese what they want. We get some ag purchases. We move on. We put a floor in the U.S. economy. What do you make of that 2020 argument?
I've never thought that was accurate, and I still don't think that is accurate.
What is it about what you see that you think that is inaccurate?
What I see is consistency in the American government's negotiating position. If they wanted a deal like that, they could have had it quite a while ago. If they wanted a deal like that, they'd already be signaling that they're ready to zag in a different direction. They haven't done that so far. After a year and a half of this, I very much doubt they will. So the bottom line for me is they are focused on making real improvements in the U.S.-Chinese relationship through enforceability. One of their touchstones all along has been that China needs to join the community of nations, live up to agreements, et cetera, and that's what they're pushing for.
I think right now markets are kind of taking headlines and responding to them less and less because they've seen this movie before. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. What are you looking for in terms of headlines that actually would matter?
Nothing. I think the headlines, by and large, are based on wishful thinking of the moment, positive or negative. And one thing that I've long thought and continue to think is that both of these countries, the U.S. and China together, have tried to manage the news cycle to make sure there's not too high highs or too low lows.
There's an agricultural lobby. It's your fault, Terry Haynes, that the milk industry's flat on its back. We saw that with the Dean Foods bankruptcy yesterday and real challenges for dairy farmers coast to coast. Pat Roberts of Kansas, Mr. Moran of Kansas as well, two senators that are buffeted by the lobbies. How powerful are the agricultural lobbies to sell to the president they're flat on their back?
I think they're powerful enough to sell to the president that they're flat on their back. I think that gets taken into account by the White House at this juncture. Do I think that the White House makes a serious move in a different direction on negotiations? I don't. It's very clear that they want agricultural sales as part of a deal, and I think they get that. But whether or not that deal is anything more than a blip in a larger Chinese-U.S. confrontation, we just don't know yet.
So then what do the Democrats do moving forward on trade? Let's assume we get... John, are we getting a phase one? You're in the know.
Are we getting a phase one deal? You want me to give you a definitive answer on that?
Please, I want that right now.
The president said in writing, perhaps in 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks Friday. Let's talk about it Friday.
You see, that's the third time he's brought that up today. He's got October 11th tattooed to his brain. What's phase two look like, go wise one?
Phase two looks like the rest of the story. Phase two looks like dealing with intellectual property restrictions.
Yeah, come on, it's like Uruguay. It's like GATT talks. It's out 5 years, right?
Well, yeah, it'll be a while. It won't be quick, certainly. But I think the White House's hope is that if they can get China to agree on enforceability, then what they can do is begin to move forward on those more difficult questions, knowing that the Chinese are actually intend to live up to them.
Good. Terry Haynes with us.
Terry, great to see you.
Thank you so much with Pangea. I just assumed I saw the list that you were in Washington. This is wonderful.
It's great to have Terry with us. Terry Haynes of Pangea Policy Advisory.
10 a.m. impeachment hearings, 11 a.m. Chairman Powell.
A lot coming up.
Yeah, a lot coming up.
Through the morning. Chairman Powell has become a snooze, Lisa Abramowitz. Is that good news for the FOMC? I imagine it is.
Absolutely. It takes them absolutely out of the hot seat right now. And really, I don't really see what he could say at this point that he would want to say that would make news.
And I would point out Mary Daly with Kathleen Hayes afterwards, which will really drive forward a conversation. Mary Daly has been more than outspoken. We should not forget that Chairman Powell attends the Hill with dissent, 3 and 2 and 2 and 3 and the rest to December 11th. On the data front, it's interesting. And, Steve Chevion just went into this with Federated. They're modeling up 13%, 13 months out. That's quite a statement.
And by the United States seems to be the primary message coming from Federated compared to what we've heard earlier in the program.
But nobody's got a double-digit mine right now. I'm not hearing that.
We've already had a double-digit move in the last couple of months off the August lows. It's been quite a move.
I didn't know that.
Speaking of the data, the economic data out of the United States, CPI coming in 20 minutes' time. Year over year, the median estimate 1.7%, ex-food, ex-energy, Tom Keene. Core, October, year over year, 2.4% is your median estimate. That data comes to you in around about 20 minutes' time.
And that will somewhat adjust Chairman Powell's comments, although I think it'll be a lot more political this time. I would suggest, I should say.
Well, it always is, isn't it? We go into this and we think...
This won't be like a press conference.
We think the audience is going to be Wall Street, and then the audience is typically the constituency of the person asking the question.
I would note the Italian stock market. I'm trying to do better than the U.S., up 28% in euro, up 23% in dollar.
Don't tell me you've got longer FTSE MIB at the close yesterday, down 1.24%.
No, I'm still triple leveraged all cash fund. I'm just deciding which country to go into.
Okay, you let us know, won't you? From New York, this is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Let's get a check on what else is happening in the world. We've got our own Michael Barr here. Michael.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Tom. The public hearings in the House impeachment inquiry begin today. Its first two witnesses for public testimony this morning have already said in closed-door sessions that President Trump withheld hundreds of millions in U.S. aid to pressure the new president of Ukraine to investigate the Bidens. Hillary Clinton says that she is being urged by, quote, many people to enter the 2020 presidential race and would not rule out a third White House bid, though she has no plans for a run. President Trump hosts a meeting with the president of Turkey today as relations between the two NATO allies are at their lowest point in decades. Turkey is facing backlash over attacks on Kurdish civilians during its incursion into Syria last month. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Lisa, Jonathan, Tom.
Michael Barr, thank you very much, sir. Looking at equity futures this morning, we are just a little bit softer on the S&P 500. We are down 0.33%. From New York this morning, good morning. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Out here in the fields.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong. Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. That's HUD.gov/fairhousing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Have you wanted... It's never nice missing out. But millions are doing just that by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB is here to help. They offer interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. So if you're one of the millions of people who are missing out, talk to TSB. Terms and conditions apply.
The world is a noisy place, but whether I'm here or here, my phone calls are always loud and clear on my Doro 6620. Hi, love. Yes, I can hear you perfectly. I'm 10 minutes away. Get your Doro 6620 from Amazon, Tesco, and O2 today.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are or what time of day, You can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Taylor Riggs.
It is all about Disney and their much anticipated debut of its new streaming service, which was hit by early technical glitches and crashes for some users. But that didn't stop the excitement and buzz on social media and worked successfully for many subscribers. Joining us now, it is True Optic CEO Andre Swanson. Andre, your take, is the glitch outage a good thing? It means demand exceeded expectations.
Well, yeah, normally it's an indicator that there's a lot more people trying to access your solution when you're having some scaling issues earlier on. In the big scheme of things, I think it's a non-event. It's a very successful day for Disney overall.
Where does Disney fit in your world of all of the streaming competitors?
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. I think most people in the industry are looking at it incorrectly. They're looking at as if Disney Plus is a competitor for Netflix. I think Disney has already shown over the last couple of years with getting the majority ownership of Hulu, with the success of ESPN Plus, and now Disney Plus. They have a winning strategy about how to attack that market, but they're not really competing with Netflix. Disney has done a better job than anybody at getting share of wallet when it comes to media and entertainment dollars.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. It is 8:17 on Wall Street. Futures are lower this morning. We go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures remain under pressure since the last time we spoke. With Dow futures down 96 points, S&P's dropped 10, and NASDAQ futures declined by 32. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.89%, and Hong Kong fell 1.8% overnight as the violence continued. And European markets are also under pressure, led by losses in Italy and Spain. Back in the U.S. on the economic front at 8:30, the Consumer Price Index. At 11 o'clock, Fed's Powell speaks before Congress, and at 2 o'clock, the monthly budget statement. After the bell last night, Skyworks disappointed. Shares are down 6% in the pre-market. And regarding earnings this morning, Canada Goose beat estimates. Shares are up 7% in the pre-market. In other news, Dow Jones reported that Google will soon offer checking accounts to consumers. And Morgan Stanley said that Tesla may get Porsche-like margins in China. In deal news, Tech Data to be acquired by Apollo for $130 per share in cash. And wrapping things up, Mosaic was cut to underweight at JP Morgan, while American Airlines rated a new sell over at UBS. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
Your live breaking news over your Bloomberg. Type squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. And Focused on Fixed Income is brought to you by PIMCO. For investors who demand more than the markets deliver, all investments contain risk and may lose value. Consult your investment professional before investing. And your Treasury up 14/30 seconds, yield 1.88%. The yield on the 2-year 1.64%, and the 30-year yield at 2.36%. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom, John, and Lisa.
Well, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. Right now, Bloomberg surveillance this morning, futures at -10, Dow futures -95. John?
Looking at the latest in Hong Kong this morning as well, Tom, the government announcing for the first time that it would close public schools. We've had officials from Hong Kong and Chinese state media warning of consequences if violence continued. What are those consequences? From Hong Kong, Karen Lee joins us now, Bloomberg Greater China editor. Great to have you with us, Karen. So let's talk about it. What are the potential consequences if violence does indeed continue?
Well, this is a question that everybody is asking, and I think we've talked about this before over the course of the last 5 months, but every couple of months there's a new question that really hovers over these protests, and at the moment it's what could the consequences be, and would China get more directly involved in trying to calm these protests if the violence continues? And earlier in the summer we had the same question: was China going to get more directly involved? They didn't. They issued some strong warnings of caution, and they're doing that again today, but we haven't seen any direct note from China that it would get involved. So far, it's stuck to these kind of cautious these kind of cautious overtures in state media. It continues to support Carrie Lam and her government here. It continues to stand by the police to say that they think that they can handle it. So at this point, we don't have anything concrete to go on, but the city is on edge. There have been a few days of pretty intense violence, some very jarring images that we've seen coming out. So people are a bit more on edge than they usually are.
Karen, the images of the university, the Chinese University of Hong Kong, folks, this is one of the great success stories of late 20th century academics. Founded in 1963, they've got a huge program they do with Yale University in the United States, and they are definitive in physics. I mean, this is the real deal university, and it is shut down for the end of the semester. What is the reaction of the people of Hong Kong when they see one of their prestigious universities shut down?
Well, you know, Tom, it was almost a bit of a domino effect with the schools today, where you had these really intense clashes yesterday at CUHK, and it almost looked like a battle zone. You had protesters and students battling with police, and they were throwing petrol bombs, and the police were throwing tear gas. And then today we woke up to more distractions. And, you know, I think that with schools closed and the entire school system, the public school system, suspended tomorrow, I think people are looking at academia now and at schools and at campuses, and CUHK at the front of that really is possibly like the new ground zero of this protest and where it goes. And all along, the protests have been led by students. They've been really youth-driven, especially these kind of later months where they've gotten more and more intense. So I think in a way some people might have been waiting for it to come to this for a bit, for these universities to become these hotbeds of activism and really be in the spotlight the way that they have been. But at the same time, the protests that we saw yesterday and the imagery coming out was jarring to see that coming from one of the premier academic institutions in Hong Kong.
It's not just academia, it's also the financial sector, and we have banks issuing warnings to their staff to stay home, stay safe. There was a Citigroup banker, ostensibly, who was arrested amid some of the protests, and all staff should exercise due care while commuting, remain vigilant of their surroundings, and check travel plans before leaving the office, this according to Deutsche Bank. Meanwhile, Ferragamo's sales in Hong Kong fell 45% during the third quarter. This is what they said in response to some of the turmoil. How big of a hit has this been economically?
Yeah, well, retail and travel in particular have taken a hit in recent months. And now you're starting to see some of these famed big banks that have been in Hong Kong for a long time start to grapple with what's, in the last couple of days, literally steps from their doors. We saw tear gas being fired in the city center, and we saw people at lunchtime, businessmen, bystanders, protesters, all fleeing from tear gas really close to the Bloomberg office in an area of town that's usually kept free from this kind of thing, especially in the middle of the day. Yeah. And so these banks that have been, you know, giving people a bit of a flexible work hours situation, they're starting to hint at a bit more caution. And I think people now having a harder time keeping that distance from it when it comes so close to you physically, when it's suddenly right outside the door and you have to worry about staff safety. I think that gives it a whole new dimension beyond wins and losses.
Karen Lee, thank you so much. Reporting from Hong Kong this morning. John, this from the website of the University of Hong Kong. And again, this is Chinese translated to English. We are deeply sorry for the inconvenience. Please give us some time to restore our beautiful campus and to heal the wound of the local students.
It cited uncertainties with the transportation system and time needed to repair damage to facilities.
Extraordinary.
And Tom, many of those students now are going to have nothing else to do but protest. And looking at the pictures coming out of this area at the moment and speaking to our colleagues over there, the police just look totally overwhelmed.
Yeah, and so my question this morning, hours ago, the idea of the relationship of the Hong Kong police to the Chinese shades of police, and the clear response from Hong Kong is they feel alone.
We go back to the top of the conversation. If the violence continues, there will be consequences, according to Chinese state media. What are those consequences? That's the conversation going through the rest of this week. From New York City this morning, good morning to you all. Equity futures are lower. We're down 9 points in the S&P 500. We are lower by 1/3 of 1%.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Google is teaming up with Citigroup and a local California credit union to offer consumer checking accounts. Bloomberg has learned the product will launch in 2020, with Citigroup handling most of the financial and compliance requirements. Stock futures point to a lower open, although they've come up some from earlier. S&P futures down 10, NASDAQ futures down 34, Dow futures are down 94. Crude oil lower by 0.25% now at $56.65 a barrel. Investors are assessing President Donald Trump's latest comments on trade. They turn their attention toward Washington, D.C. today as the U.S. House opens public impeachment proceedings, and Fed Chair Jay Powell will address the Joint Economic Committee of Congress. The company that assembles Apple's iPhones beat profit estimates in its latest quarter, indicating solid demand for the new iPhone 11 models. One more check of the Dow futures, down 95 points. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients, and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com/.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
O Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo? Deny thy father and come to the shops with me. We can get 10% off 2 big shops a month with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and 10% off your favourite Tesco brands, including F&F in-store every day. All for $7.99 a month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online today. £200 max spend per shop, in-store spend only. Club card app required, exclusions apply. See online for details.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
Oh no. 1 kebab, 4 cabs, 3 karaoke booths.
But really?
You can't always recall what you spent on a night out, but you could map the location of those transactions on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. Not available for every transaction. T's and C's apply.
Good. Here's a swing and a drive deep to right field. Looking up. Goodbye, baseball.
Between game-winning shots and walk-off homers, follow TuneIn on social media to discover the latest and greatest in live sports.
With the 24th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
From live reminders that the biggest MLB games are on the air, to recommendations of the best new sports talk shows and podcasts.
He's going to be fine. He's going to be good right away in 3 years.
Follow at TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
The swagger of a perfect dunk. The rush of a three made from all the way downtown. The adrenaline surge of great defense. Can you feel the goosebumps yet? There's nothing like live NBA and nothing like listening live on TuneIn.
Giannis down the lane to the rim, throwing right corner three. Another
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season, so you can be there when it matters most. Never miss the action as it happens. Hear the ball you love. Hear it live on TuneIn. Search NBA today to start listening.
Broadcast Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance for our audience worldwide. We're live on Bloomberg Radio with some economic data for you, and your economic indicators are brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the sixth straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit commonwealth.com to learn more. Let's get that economic data, shall we? Let's say hello to Vinny Daljudice.
And hello, Jonathan, to you and Tom and everyone else. Consumer Price Index, cost of living, October, month-over-month topping forecast, up 0.4%. Excluding food and energy, October, topping forecast up 0.2%. But year-over-year core CPI, again, excluding food and energy, it slowed a bit to 2.3%. So a bit of a mixed bag here. Numbers still questioning whether inflation will reach the Fed's target. But let's not kid ourselves. College tuition, health care, dental care.
Sounds like incoming mail.
Tom, can you get a bazooka bubble gum for a penny anymore? So, we have inflation out there. I'm Vinny Daljudice, Bloomberg Radio. Let's go back to New York.
Vinny, thanks so much. And Vinny, John completely encapsulates the number one thing I get in the mail, which is this is nuts. But I like what he said about mixed inflation. This is a perfect time to speak to a gentleman who parses the details of price change like truly no one I know. He is David Rosenberg. He wrote a book on this. He wrote a chapter, rather, in my book on this over a decade ago. He was remarkably prescient about the steadfastness of lower inflation, and he joins us right now. David Rosenberg, thank you so much for joining us. What can Chairman Powell say about inflation when people like Vinny Daljudice are looking at service sector, Dallas trim, and Cleveland CPI elevated way above the fancy inflation number that guys like you look at?
Well, I think Jay Powell is going to tell everybody that policy is situated right now at a level that is going to get core inflation at target for the foreseeable future. So I don't think he's going to say that it's too hot or it's too cold.
Yeah.
I frankly think that anybody who's complaining about where inflation is today, I mean, you have inflation levels today that in the past we would have been in recession by now. You got to take a look at where inflation is against where we are in the cycle. I mean, you have basically 2% inflation in the context of a 3.5% unemployment rate, a stock market at a record high. But it's really a lagging indicator in any event. I mean, you really want to drive focused by looking through the front window, not the rearview mirror.
What's the vector of the front window?
Like the window, for example, the New York Fed does the work for you. I know that everybody's focused on the year-over-year trend in CPI. It's a backward-looking indicator. The New York Fed's leading inflation index has come down now for 11 straight months. I don't hear that reported too often, by the way. It's a leading indicator. It actually peaked in August of 2018. Surprise, surprise, 2 months before bond yields peaked. So the leading inflation indicators are telling you that today's 2% plus headline inflation and core inflation are going to be materially lower in the next year.
I'll work up that chart. We'll get out to you folks. You'll see it first on Bloomberg Radio, out on Twitter in a moment. Lisa, that really brings up what Lakshman Achathan said yesterday, using a completely different strategy of the out front vector is towards disinflation.
Which is a good point, and probably the reason why you are seeing 2-year yields dip even for the day, even after this data comes out. But David, I have to wonder, given the fact that we are getting healthcare costs, rent going up, school going up, how disinflationary that reality is just in general going forward.
Right. Well, look, there are segments of the CPI and even the PC deflator to a lesser extent that have a lot of imputations, a lot of imputed services, which basically is the government's guesswork on where inflation is going in areas of the economy where pricing isn't easily observable. Financial services, by the way, I didn't hear you mention that. Ask anybody out there who's on a commission basis if there's inflation in the financial services industry. There isn't. I would say that, the less cyclical you are, the better pricing power you have in a more sluggish economic environment. So there's some things that just don't go down in price ever. And those are mostly the essentials of life. And you mentioned them, healthcare. You mentioned education. You could probably throw in utilities. There are actually some things in the economic data that never even go down in a recession. You'd be surprised to know that 40% of consumption never goes down, even in the worst recessions, because they're basically essentials. You need them. Therefore, you don't cut back on them even when times get tough. So, yeah, I would tend to agree with you that even in a low inflation environment, declining inflation environment, which is what we're going to be seeing, not every single segment of the CPI or the PC deflator is going to be joining in that. But I will tell you that the most cyclical, economic sensitive areas are going to be finding their pricing power dissipating over the course of the next 12 months.
David, 45 seconds on the clock. As short as you can, what is the biggest pushback to the happy talk we're hearing at the moment that the global economy has bottomed out and we've seen the worst of it here in the United States?
Yeah, well, I think that I wouldn't say so much a pushback. Here's the reality. The reality is that people make their assessments on where the economy is going by focused on the stock market. They don't see that the stock market is being ongoingly boosted by the supply side, the fact that you're getting ongoing support from these massive share buybacks. So people look at the stock market, when it's melting. This time last year, we're going into a depression. Oops, no, I guess we're not. And then you have the market doing this melt up in the past couple of months, which is because some of the risk has been taken off the board, but people are making their assessments just based on where the stock market is going. And I think that this cycle, the whole cycle, we have seen a complete breakdown in the economic message from the stock market to the real economy.
Now, David Rosenberg with us. Next time we'll have extended further comments on inflation as well. And also David Rosenberg on the Montreal Canadiens. Futures -9, Dow futures at -90, and the VIX 13.20. This is Bloomberg.
And now for the news from New York City, here is Michael Barr.
Jonathan, Tom, Lisa, the first open televised hearing of the impeachment inquiry takes place today with key witnesses answering questions in front of the House Intelligence Committee. The top U.S. official in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, and State Department official George Kent will share what they know about the president, Ukraine, and a $390 million military aid package. Republican Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, an ally of President Trump, says he expects the Senate to have the case by Christmas.
If we take it up to the first of the year, rather, I think it's going to wreak havoc for my Democratic colleagues who are running for president.
President Trump's meeting with Turkey's president comes as their countries are at odds over Turkey's attacks on Syrian Kurds. Some U.S. lawmakers maintain that Turkish President Erdogan should never have been invited to the White House for today's meeting. Classes were canceled at universities, and parents of school children in Hong Kong were told to keep their kids home today. Tensions between groups of angry anti-government demonstrators and police have increased. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok or on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Lisa, Jonathan, Tom.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Sign up for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report. Here's John Stashower.
Tom, latest Knick loss in Chicago. The Bulls, one of only two teams the Knicks have been able to defeat this season. The game was tied through three quarters, but in the fourth, Bulls went on a 24-2 run. Rookie Kobe White made 7 3-point shots. Chicago beat David Fizdale's Knicks 120-102.
Broke the game open. We were tit for tat there for a long time. And, I mean, wow. Just wow. He really he put on a show. And he had a step back going to his right that had to be 28 to 30 feet deep. And that's when you're really rolling. And we just had no answer for him.
Knicks are 2-9 amid reports Fizdale's in danger of getting fired. Nets fell to 4-6, outscored by 20 in the second half, lost at Utah 119-114. Rangers and Penguins at the Garden 2-2 in overtime.
Here's Fox over the line. Adam Fox across the slot. Slides it back down. The rookies hook up on the overtime winner. Kako wins it for the Rangers.
CSN And at the call game, winner by Capo Caco, the 18-year-old from Finland who the Rangers just drafted with the second overall pick. St. John's went to 3-0, beat New Hampshire 74-61. Evansville upset top-ranked Kentucky at Rupp Arena. The Purple Aces came in as a 25-point underdog. Gabe Kapler fired by the Phillies. Now the new manager of the Giants. The Twins, Rocco Baldelli, edged out Aaron Boone for American League Manager of the Year. Could Colin Kaepernick get back in the NFL? Hasn't played since 2016 when he began taking a knee during the national anthem. He will work out and talk to teams on Saturday. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Tom?
John, thanks so much. Greatly appreciate it. -10 on futures, exactly. Dow futures at -98. Setting ourselves up for 11 a.m., where we'll have Chairman Powell in testimony. And, of course, an hour before that, the impeachment hearings start as well. We draw your attention to the continued unrest in Hong Kong. Thank you to our Karen Lee for attending earlier with a real snapshot of 2 very difficult days in Hong Kong. Futures in 6, 1.87 on the 10-year yield. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their business strategically. Yet, the most competitive managers in the market know, with the right partner and a flexible operating platform, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President, Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Far wing, elevates, triple bucket.
The roar of the crowd. The shot clock ticks down. Will the ball go in? The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. And the replays just don't cut
the
it.
Sideline, the man bleeds for 3.
TuneIn Premium brings you every minute of the NBA season streaming live, so you can be there when it matters most. Hear it now, hear it live on TuneIn.
Pump fake in the lane, turnaround jumper from 8 feet is good on the
Search
right
NBA today to start listening.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Some days life can get in the way of catching up on the news that moves your world. TuneIn is here to help. With live 24/7 coverage from CNN wherever you go on the TuneIn app, you can always find a slice of your schedule, however long, to check in on the biggest stories of the day.
Hell hath no fury. The president's counselor went on a rampage on a taped phone call with Washington Examiner reporter.
Search CNN on TuneIn to get the live news when it matters most.
College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores us down.
The top of the Big 12 is at stake. Reigning champion Oklahoma travels to Waco, Texas to take on the surprising undefeated Baylor Bears. The action kicks off this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
Decision makers to a network of news and financial information 24 hours a day. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Here we go. The first public impeachment investigation hearings, must-see TV for millions, are set for this morning. Correspondent Jessica Schneider says the gavel drops at 10 a.m. Eastern.
Top diplomat to Ukraine Bill Taylor and Deputy Assistant Secretary of State George Kent will testify sitting side by side. The nationally televised hearings helping House Democrats bring their case against Trump to life, arguing he abused his power by pressuring Ukraine to begin investigations for his own political gain.
President Trump's aides expect he will be live tweeting during the hearings. He's already been tweeting about the inquiry this morning. Record cold throughout the eastern U.S. this morning, says meteorologist Chad Myers.
Today is the bottom. This is the lowest and the coldest it gets. We warm up from here, but temperatures are below zero in some spots with wind chill factors today.
In Worcester, Massachusetts this morning, firefighters enduring the brutal cold to put out a fire in a multi-family home. A fire department lieutenant has died. I'm Christopher Cruz.
The world's top business and political leaders prefer to speak to someone who understands them.
We're looking right now at the White House.
Balance of Power with David Weston. Weekdays at noon Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. A key measure of U.S. consumer prices unexpectedly cooled in October despite fresh tariffs on Chinese goods. A sign price gains may be slow to reach the Federal Reserve's target even after interest rate cuts this year. The core consumer price index, which excludes volatile food and energy costs, rose 2.3% from a year earlier. U.S. stock index futures, meanwhile, moving lower. S&P futures down about 10 points right now. Dow futures down 90. NASDAQ futures down 28. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg, and investors are digesting President Trump's latest comments on trade as well as ongoing unrest in Hong Kong. The DAX in Germany is down 0.6%. 10-year Treasury up 18.30 seconds, yield 1.87%. Yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.33% or 18 cents at $56.61 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.7% or $9.80 at $14.6360 an ounce. The euro 1.1009 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.78. And the new MacBook Pro features a new keyboard with a redesigned scissor mechanism, a 6-speaker sound system, longer battery life, among other things. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. It is 8:48 on Wall Street.
The following commentary is from Bloomberg Opinion.
Disney Plus launches with Super Bundle Dreams. I'm Tara LaChapelle, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion. It's time to bundle up. And not just because it's getting cold outside. This week's launch of Disney Plus suggests that the streaming industry is exploring ways to create new versions of the cable TV bundle. While Disney Plus is perfect for Star Wars and Marvel fans, or for parents of small children, it doesn't offer a whole lot of variety. That's why Disney also introduced a discounted $13 bundle that adds Hulu and ESPN Plus. The company probably won't be alone in doing this. For cable giants like Comcast and Charter, structuring similar packages would seem like a natural evolution of their distribution businesses. The splintering of TV content across various apps, each with their own paywalls, has created a frustrating experience for consumers. The revival of bundles could go a long way toward fixing that. I'm Tara LaChapelle. For more Bloomberg Opinion, please go to Bloomberg.com/opinion or OPIN Go on the Bloomberg terminal.
This has been Bloomberg Opinion.
And Bloomberg Opinion editorials can be heard every weekday at this time, and terminal customers can read more at OPIN Go. Tom.
Karen, thank you so much. Greatly appreciated. Tom Keenan, Lisa Bramwitz, thank you for being with us this morning. Futures -9, Dow futures -88. We had the great pleasure of speaking with Mr. Schwartzman of Blackstone here recently, out with a new book, and he is making the circuit, and it's always interesting when that circuit includes David Rubenstein. Of course, David Rubenstein with Carlyle Group and his wonderful effort with us of peer-to-peer conversations. And this is truly a peer-to-peer conversation of David Rubenstein and Steve Schwartzman. Let's listen in.
In 2007, you decide maybe you should take the firm public. It's a private company. Why did you take the firm public?
Well, I took it public for a lot of different reasons. I had a sixth sense that something terrible was going to happen in the environment. Money was so available. Money was cheap. Everybody was doing things. Prices were crazy. And I just had a sense this was going to come to a bad ending. And we should have a lot of capital to make sure we were bomb-proof.
And that is Steve Schwartzman with David Rubenstein. And, of course, the David Rubenstein peer-to-peer preview always brought to you by Wells Fargo Technology Banking. And the Tech Industry Challenge is what you make of it. Get solutions with Wells Fargo. Joining us now, David Rubenstein, to speak of Mr. Schwartzman. David, what is the Blackstone distinction? What is the tone or the cadence that Steve Schwartzman brings to the Blackstone day?
Well, Steve has led the building of a firm which has the highest market capitalization of the private equity in the private equity world, so it's obviously been very successful. But it has had its challenges, as Steve points out. After the company went public, the stock market went down for all firms, really, and then his firm's stock went down a great deal, too. I think the stock is now at 51 or so, but I think it went down as low as 3 or 4 in the depths of the Great Recession. So they built a great firm. The market value went down, and now they've rebuilt it in many ways. And they've done it by having no one area that is the indispensable part of the firm. They have a very strong hedge fund of funds business, a really great real estate business, by far the best in the world, I'd say, a very good global private equity business, and a very good hedge fund of funds business, and a credit business, I should say, credit business built by Bennett Goodman, a firm that they bought, that Bennett Goodman and his partners had built. So they're strong across the board. And they've obviously had very strong leadership with Steve and Pete Peterson before him, and Tony James, and now Jonathan Gray. So it's a well-diversified firm, and I think they've done quite well in everything they've touched.
Indeed, certainly their assets would reflect that in terms of how much they have ballooned over the past decade since the financial crisis, taking advantage of this shift from public markets to private markets, heading into what inevitably will be another downturn. How has the role of some of these private equity firms in Blackstone changed from Stephen Schwartzman's view, given the fact that they've moved from underdog in some ways to the main player?
Well, what's happened over the last 10 years since the Great Recession is that private equity has grown dramatically, in part because people see that through recessions, private equity does pretty well as well, so that people are thinking that if there is another recession coming, a good hedge against that is investing in private equity because it rides the down cycles pretty well. Also, the rates of return of private equity, while they've come down over the years, are still so much higher than the rates of return in public equities or public fixed income that people increasingly looking for yield in a low interest rate environment are going to private equity funds that can not guarantee but are more likely to get mid-teen rates of return, and that's pretty attractive in this environment.
Does that outperformance get threatened given how much money has gone into private equity over the past few years?
There's no doubt that there's more money than there's ever been. I think that the money in the ground and the money that's in reserve, so-called dry powder, is roughly $4 trillion. That's a lot of money. On the other hand, the investors aren't looking for the 20% net internal rates of return that they wanted 10 years ago. They think that's unrealistic. I think today, if you can get an investor 12%, 13%, 14%, 15% net annualized rate of return, they're quite happy, and that's not that difficult to do relative to what it was before.
David, I hope I traipse lightly here, not away from peer-to-peer conversations, but a peer-to-peer moment, and that is the transaction of Aramco. Do you have a thought on the process of doing Aramco for the royal family?
There's no doubt that MBS, who's effectively the leader of the country, wants to get this done, and I'm fairly confident that he will get it done. Whether the valuation is exactly what he originally wanted, it's not clear. But I think many people who get to the IPO pricing stage say, well, I guess I thought I was going to get a higher price, but I'll take this and hope for the best. And I suspect that's what will happen here. The pricing will probably be lower than he once thought it would be, but I think it will be attractive enough to get it done.
One final question, David, if we could. You had the pleasure of Admiral Stavridis serving at Carlisle as well, and you had your public service to President Carter. He is ill. He is recovering. He is a venerable 95 years old. Inform our audience of the Carter, the legacy that we see from President Carter.
I think President Carter, who may well outlive me, I'm 70 now, but his health is, in many ways, he's very resilient, and I wouldn't say that he's not going to be around for another 10 years or so. President Carter's 4 years as president were not met with as much success by outsiders into their view of his presidency as his former presidency has been, or his ex-presidency. He's been a former president for 10 times as long as he was president. 40 years, former president, 4 years as president. I think he has done a lot as former president. That's very laudable, but I think people shouldn't diminish some of the very good things he did as president, and he would like that legacy to be remembered as well. But the things he's done as a former president are just extraordinary, including setting a model for what a former president should do in terms of helping to solve global problems.
David Rubenstein, thank you so much for those comments. And of course, it is the David Rubenstein Show, peer-to-peer conversations. That is tonight on Bloomberg Television at 9 p.m. Wall Street time, on radio tomorrow at 5 p.m. with Mr. Schwartzman. The Schwartzman book is more than just another book. It is a real statement on the battles and on what he built. I was pleasantly surprised by it.
And what he built is a behemoth. And I think what David Rubenstein was saying about the private equity industry is salient right now. That, yes, there's a lot of money coming in, but investors are not expecting the same kinds of returns. They're just expecting some outperformance and some sort of hedge against the downside. And I think that that's an important point.
Well, it's a hedge against institutional money. And it's fascinating to me, particularly for big institutional blocks of money, gazillions and gazillions of dollars, of how quote-unquote alternative investments fit in. And the world of Mr. Schwartzman and Mr. Rubenstein seems to be a little more persistent than maybe what they're getting in other alternative investments. So
but they can't...
did I say that okay without getting in trouble?
Perfect.
Yeah, I did okay. I'm not focused.
Is anyone mad? No,
I was up all night. I was up all night watching Disney Plus.
Let's hear your Let It Go. Come on, let's go.
No. The Frozathon is this weekend, I'm told.
So you were doing some prep.
We'll get an update in the next hour from Mr. Sweeney, who is our expert on your streaming headaches at home. I got the Netflix lecture yesterday.
And what's that lecture?
We have to have Netflix.
Oh, of course, you have to
have Netflix.
Stranger Things.
I said, when did I last watch Netflix? And I said, precisely. Stay with us. Futures at -9. Chairman Powell at 11 a.m. This is Bloomberg.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Oh no. 1 kebab, 4 cabs, 3 karaoke booths.
But really?
You can't always recall what you spent on a night out, but you could map the location of those transactions on our mobile banking app. Feel in control every day. Lloyds Bank, by your side. Not available for every transaction. T's and C's apply.
It's one small step for man, one giant shop. Sorry, 2 giant shops a month at 10% off with the new Tesco Club Card Plus. Oh, and double data from Tesco Mobile, all for $7.99 every month.
New Tesco Club Card Plus. Value you can't stop talking about. Subscribe online today.
£200 max spend per shop, in-store spend only, club card app required, exclusions apply, double data only on pay monthly, home from home destinations. First payment payable up front, subject to status, see online for details.
The world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
I think the U.S. is going in for a couple of years of very, very strong growth.
The deficit by early in the next decade will start to become a real problem for the markets.
Finance.
The consumer is really strong right now.
We don't realize how good times are now.
Investment.
The biggest problem that people have in investing in stocks is that they get out of the market.
It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Paul Sweeney and Tom Keene, our studios in New York. We say good morning, Boston, 106.1 FM Boston, 99.1 FM in a very crowded Washington. This morning, impeachment hearings. Chairman Powell at 11. We'll have that for you on Bloomberg Radio. Much more going on. The Erdogan-Trump presser, Paul, right?
Yes,
scheduled this afternoon.
Yes.
As well. That's what I focused on with Kevin Cirilli today, so look for that as well. Of course, Kevin Cirilli sound on 5 p.m. tonight in Washington will be a terrific wrap to the day. So much going on, and with it, a pullback in the markets. Yields in 6 basis points. 1.88%. I would say the jumpstart, Paul, was that headline from Bloomberg: substantially higher tariffs. If.
That
yes, so we're back and forth. We're back and forth on this trade rhetoric, and that's what. Yes, so substantial.
We have substantial questions about. Remember, Paul, Alibaba came out and the Cayman Islands accounting, and there were substantial questions right now. So right now we get substantial comments from David Wilson.
You're talking about a pretty substantial share sale coming for Alibaba Group Holdings.
Is this a secondary or a tertiary?
Well, no, it's a primary sale in a new market, Hong Kong, where they are not currently listed. Yeah. So there you go. They filed for the sale, and a person familiar with the matter said Alibaba plans to offer about 500 million shares, and that would work out to more than $11 billion of stock.
That's based on Aramco.
Something like that, yes. And based on yesterday's closing price for their American depository receipts. Then you have Tesla up 1.5%. You realize Tesla at this point is now doubled from its low in June. Up today after CEO Elon Musk said the electric car maker will build a factory in Germany near Berlin.
Yeah. Can I do a shout out? Okay,
it's your show. You can do whatever you want, Tom.
I need my badge to work on Monday, folks. Matt Winkler, our editor-in-chief emeritus, absolutely nailed this. He said, these gloom crew, these guys are nuts. Look at what the stock people are doing. And, Paul, they've been on the bid.
Yep.
Matt absolutely nailed this. Continue. You think my badge will work on Monday? Half a chance?
I suspect so. And they're not only setting up a factory in Germany, also an engineering and design center. Think about that one. You've got a deal in the technology area, Tech Data. This company's a distributor. It's up 3.5%. They accepted a $4.6 billion buyout offer from private equity firm Apollo Global Management. We're talking about $130 a share, and Tech Data at the moment trading just above that price, $130.05.
Cool.
There you go. American Airlines down 1.5%. The carrier received a sell rating at UBS, which began coverage of the airline industry. The firm cited Americans' labor issues and dependence on Boeing's 737 MAX jet. You had results out late yesterday from Skyworks Solutions, chip maker, supplier to Apple. They didn't go over so well. Stocks down 5.5%. Morgan Stanley described the figures as underwhelming, even though if you just looked at earnings and sales, you might think otherwise. They beat analyst average estimates in a Bloomberg survey. You've also got Qorvo, another chip maker, supplier to Apple, just like Skyworks, down 1.5%. Stock cut to hold from buy Canaccord Genuity. The firm saw Qorvo's shares as too expensive after rising 70% from a low back in May. Ring Central's down 3%. Avaya Holdings is selling most of the shares it's receiving from the communication software maker as part of a partnership. The sale amounts to a 2.3% stake and would raise more than $300 million at Ring Central's closing price yesterday. Albemarle's down 2.5%. The lithium producer was lowered to sell from neutral at Citigroup based on weak demand for that mineral used in batteries for computers, smartphones, electric cars. Foot Locker up 2%. The athletic wear retailer is higher after Nike said it would stop selling products directly through Amazon.com. You realize
that's interesting.
More than half of their spending at Foot Locker on supplies is directed to Nike. And one more for you. Energizer Holdings up 7%. The battery maker's earnings and sales last quarter beat estimates. They come up short on both the top and bottom lines in the previous 2 quarters.
Can you do more on Ring Central at some point? RNG, they're up 51% per year in the last 6 years.
Not shabby.
Why did you tell me about that stock? Where were you? 4 years ago.
Tom, David, you have a lot of friends. You don't need me for that.
David Wilson, thank you so much. Yeah, I got 8,000 shares of Uber. Paul?
That's right. Well, Tom, as you remember, yesterday President Trump spoke at the Economic Club of New York, and he had some, once again, not necessarily supportive comments about his Federal Reserve. To get the latest, we welcome our good friend Arthur Levitt, former chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, board member of Bloomberg LP. Arthur, what do you think of the president's comments yesterday at the Economic Club of New York?
I think once again we see the efforts of Trump to manipulate all the levers of power that he possibly can. He contends that the Fed should continue to cut interest rates to make the country more competitive in the global market. And, of course, he continued to bash the Fed. And it's too bad that he couldn't be more positive, because Chairman Powell is doing, in my book, an outstanding job of managing that organization. And the Fed did cut interest rates last month for the 3rd time this year to shield the economy from uncertainty over trade and weaker global growth. So the Fed is signaling that the policy is now on hold pending any adverse change in the economy. And the benchmark target rate of 1.5 to 1.75 by historic standards is high and higher than Japan and the Eurozone, which have shifted to negative rates in an effort to lift moribund economies.
So, Arthur, you've been in and around the U.S. government for decades. Give us your just perspective as it relates to how this president treats his Federal Reserve in a public manner.
With far less respect than his predecessors. Historically, presidents have deferred to the Fed. They certainly, in the quiet of night, tried to persuade the Fed to lower interest rates, but certainly publicly, presidents have deferred to the independence of the agency. Trump is his own person and defers to nobody, except maybe Melania.
So we're going to hear from Chairman Powell later today. I guess my question is, to what extent do you think that these constant, kind of challenges and bashing of the Fed impacts Chairman Powell or the FOMC in general?
I think as far as Chairman Powell is concerned, not at all. And I'd say the same of any number of Fed chairmen that I have known. I think they pride themselves in their independence above and beyond anything else. They want to retain the independence that the chair has. And I can remember Alan Greenspan personally, I watched him operate, and he is the personification of independence, and I think Powell follows in that course of action.
Arthur, thank you so much. The former chairman of the Securities Exchange Commission and Bloomberg LP board member. Paul, in the time we've got here, let's do a window into what everybody's all lathered up about is Disney Plus, and I think the stock always is a good signaler there. You know, big up on pricing, trading range, and a real vault here in the last couple of days. Why is the vault of the last couple of days occurring?
I think that people recognize that this is the future of the Disney story, i.e. streaming, as this company pivots from its traditional media cable network business and pivots towards this streaming, this direct-to-consumer relationship. You know, it's a big, risky move. It's going to cost them billions of dollars over the next several years. They're not going to break even on this until they say 2024. So it's a big, big, risky move. But I think if you sit down and say, gee, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 or 4 streamers in the future. Netflix is certainly one of them. Disney's probably going to be number 2.
You bring up Disney Plus, but just to the right of it on the website is Hulu.
Yep.
Disney Plus, ESPN Plus.
Yep.
Is that a bundle?
That's going to be a bundle. That's going to be, and you're going to get a nice pricing discount if you take the bundle, but that gives you the kids in Disney Plus. It gives you the adult fare in Hulu.
Hulu's
and it gives you sports.
YouTube TV equivalent?
It's a Disney Plus. It's a Netflix equivalent, just much smaller, but it's geared towards
Hulu's a Netflix equivalent.
It's another streamer.
Okay. Well, there it is.
It's going to be on your credit card bill next month, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. That's really depressing. This is Bloomberg.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. The Washington version of Must-See TV makes its debut with the first public hearing in the impeachment inquiry. Following 2 witnesses today are a witness tomorrow and 8 more over 3 days next week, all providing testimony about President Donald Trump's efforts involving U.S. aid for Ukraine to investigations of his political opponents. Trump denies doing anything wrong. Police in Hong Kong are stepping up efforts to crack down on street protests today after fierce clashes overnight with anti-government demonstrators. Classes are suspended at universities. Parents are being urged to keep school-aged children home. And after 5 months of increasingly violent protests, a police official is warning that Hong Kong is on the brink of a total breakdown. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
And Michael Barr, thanks so much. Again, Chairman Powell, 11 a.m. this morning. It'll be interesting what he does not say, just as much as how he spins the tale to December 11th. Futures, -10. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
Hey y'all, Jeff Foxworthy here. Now, if you've ever found yourself repeating the same thing over and over for 75 years, you might be Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's why I'm filling in for Smokey to switch things up, because there's a lot more to say. And I should know because my grandfather was a firefighter. And one of the things he taught me is that the people that love the outdoors the most are often the ones accidentally starting wildfires, which means always BYOB. No, bring your own bucket to the campfire. And be extra careful with things like burning yard trimmings. Don't just walk away, or chances are you might be starting a wildfire. So for the love of the outdoors, go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Why has JD Power...
I've got to tell you about our beautiful city break in Bath. Midweek is the perfect time to beat the crowds. Just an hour and a half by train from London. It was so relaxing. We headed straight for Bath Christmas Market. Oh, I can still smell the roasted chestnuts and mulled wine from the chalets. Then it was time for glow-in-the-dark mini-golf. I got a hole-in-one. Well, 3. I'm a bit rusty, okay? There's so much to do in Bath. I'm already planning my next trip.
Discover the magic of Bath this Christmas. Plan ahead at visitbath.co.uk/Christmas.
This is the sound of Helen and Peter, hiking to the fairy tale fortress high above the winter wonderland below. Or it would be, if they hadn't stopped at the first beer house they came to. There it is, Helen and Peter. There's your Incredible. Fly from London Gatwick to Salzburg from £29 each way. With British Airways, Incredible is within reach. Terms and conditions apply. Limited availability and dates. Fare quoted is each way based on a return. cba.com/Gatwick for details.
This year, make Christmas shopping a pleasure. Come to Bicester Village, with over 160 beautiful boutiques set in a fairy tale Cotswolds Christmas garden, glittering by day and magically illuminated by night. After a day's hard work finding the perfect gifts, reward yourself with festive menus and cocktails at Farm Shop Restaurant and Cafe by Soho House & Co. or a delicious dinner at Cafe Wolseley. Bicester Village, the perfect place for Christmas shopping.
Waiting for a phone that makes everything look crystal clear, like a brilliant iPhone 8 with Retina display? The wait is over. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event is on. This week, get an iPhone 8 for just £23.49 a month, a saving of £144. Get yours by 17th of November. Tesco Mobile, every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products in promotion was £27.49, now £23.49. 36-month credit agreement, rolling monthly usage agreement, subject to status, phase policy applies. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Tracy Alloway.
Let's bring in Jonathan Kavanaugh. He is JP Morgan Chase's head of Asia EMFX strategy. Given some of the concerns that we've seen in the market, concerns over the phase 1 trade agreement, concerns over the situation in Hong Kong, what's your pick for a safe haven in the currency space?
I think that people have been generally surprised this year about the extent to which the dollar yen has been fairly resilient. So we haven't seen as much, I guess, yen strength as you might expect given the global headwinds from the economic slowdown, etc., and all of the risk events that we've kind of seen transpire. So I think that kind of reflects to some extent that we're still seeing a fairly strong domestic outflow story from Japan to the rest of the world. And if you listen to what our Japanese strategists are saying, they do expect that continue. So we're not expecting, even over the next kind of 6 to 12 months, much yen strength to come through. So that largely leaves things like the dollar, the Swiss francs, as you kind of mentioned, as probably more of the true safe havens. I think particularly from the dollar against emerging market currencies, I still think the dollar is still going to be the safest play that people view in terms of where they're going to be putting their money if they become concerned about the economic cycle, if they become concerned about the US-China trade conflict as well.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. The Bloomberg Futures Report brought to you by IBKR and CME Group. The new Micro E-mini Futures contracts are available at IBKR at the lowest commissions. Learn more at ibkr.com/CME Mini. And U.S. stock index futures are lower this morning with stocks in Europe and Asia as investors digest President Trump's latest comments on trade, as well as ongoing unrest in Hong Kong. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are down 10 points. Dow futures down 94. NASDAQ futures down 30. The DAX in Germany's down 0.6%. 10-year Treasury up 18.30 seconds. Yield 1.87%. Yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil down 0.6% or 35 cents at $56.45 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.7% or $10.40 at $14.64.10 an ounce. The euro 1.1005, British pound 1.2834, and the yen is at 108.77. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it, Karen. One of the important things to know is if you need some night reading, one of the ways to get back to the ambient and to sleep is to read Damien Sassower on, just as an example, CDS skew. The idiosyncratic risk in Argentina and Lebanon is contributing to the dislocation in EM, CDX, skew. Joining us now on skew and kurtosis, Damien Sassower, head of all of our emerging market work. Damien, let me cut to the English. You can have all the cross moments you want in skewedness out there. The bottom line is there's a percolating bet that finally international will do better versus US. Do you buy it?
I don't necessarily buy that at all. And my job here is to amuse you and Paul, Tom, as you well know. But, I think it's the time to lean into periodic dislocations, right? And I think we're in a market here where you're seeing these growing dispersions, and the frequency of these occurrences is likely to increase, in my opinion, not decrease over the coming quarters. And so what we're pointing out here in this morning's deck is that the CDS bond basis in EM dollar credit has gone so negative. I mean, it's gone to levels that we don't normally see, especially for many of the higher risk sovereigns like Brazil, Mexico, and Russia. And so, it's something that I guess we would advise, you take what the market gives you, Tom. And we would advise investors take a good look at that in this environment.
So you're saying it's all quiet on the Sassower front?
Well, I think what it is in this positive sentiment move, Tom, it's not quite at all. What you see is are synthetics, derivative contracts like CDS. They basically outperform on both the way down and the way up, right, relative to the cash bonds, which are less liquid. Mm-hmm. And so what that does is it creates these kind of basis opportunities, which in a market where banks just don't have trading desks and proprietary trading desks anymore to take advantage of these arbitrage opportunities when they arise, they tend to persist for far longer. And so that's what we're obviously seeing. But at some point, things have to give.
Damien, in your research note this morning, you note that Asian sovereigns have stronger credit fundamentals than EM peers. Why is that?
Well, I mean, just based on their, the fundamentals of their economies, right? I mean, if you're talking about Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and China, which are the four Asian sovereigns that are part of the 18 included in the EM credit default swap index, they're all high grade, fundamentally strong credits, so, it makes sense that you would see the shape of their credit default swap curve flatten to the extent we've seen over the better part of the last year.
But again, as I think about EM, one of the drivers that, that kind of is out there for me if I were an investor would be just the trade uncertainty and getting a trade deal. Now, while we're certainly hearing rhetoric that a phase one type of deal is in the offing, if it does not happen and it's just one tweet away from not happening, then Asia would be perhaps more at risk?
Yeah, exactly. Well, what you would expect to see in this in that type of environment, Paul, I mean, you rightly point out, is you would expect much of the kind of the flattening of their curves, basically the default, the decline in their yields. I mean, at some point, you would have to see things kind of reverse the other way. And certainly the fact that the Fed appears to be on hold in most central banks. I mean, we're going to see Mexico tomorrow. We're going to see Egypt tomorrow as well. They've been tracking the Fed. And so, if things start to move and stabilize the other way, which I think, Tom, what you were alluding to at the beginning of our conversation, we could see things move. Go wider.
With the challenges of Argentina, why has the currency been stable? I mean, there's a black market move, which I believe has been weaker black market peso, but actual peso has been level. Is that just the countries in there every single moment supporting the Argentinian peso?
I mean, Tom, it's hard for me to comment really on what's supporting the Argentine peso because I don't trade it. And the reality is it's far less liquid than it was even 6 to 8 months ago, So who is really, able, first of all, legally, so I mean, I really can't comment on that. But what I can say is I had an Argentine fund manager in our 731 offices just last week. And, they're pricing in, upwards of 60 cents recovery. I mean, the bonds are trading at 40 cents now. So, just talking about the dollar credit here. So, a lot of people are starting to put risk to work there again. I think it may be premature.
See that phrase he uses? Yep. They're putting risk to work.
Exactly.
He makes it sound so easy.
Exactly.
We're putting risk to work.
So, Damien, I can't let you go without getting your thoughts on Brazil. And I think, because Latin America obviously is a big part of the index. What's going on in Brazil these days?
Yeah, Brazil is kind of an interesting one, right? I mean, what's really amazing about Brazil is it has had one of the best. It's been one of the best performers in emerging markets this year, and really over the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, it's really done well. Bolsonaro, despite some of the things we're seeing now and some of the difficulties he's having, in pushing through a full pension reform bill, it does look like something's getting done there, Paul, and the market's priced that in now. So what comes next is really the question, right? And how does it spill over into the private markets, right? And into, companies like Petrobras, we saw those auctions last week and others. So, I think that's what investors are focused on. And there are some opportunities, in my opinion, in some of the protein producers like JBS and some of the other high yield plays there.
Yeah, this is great. I've really learned something. Damien Sassauer, thank you so much. Running EM, a really important, extremely pro essay every day for Bloomberg, available to Bloomberg Terminal users. Way pro mathematics, folks. Paul Sweeney, this is what, Afterthought said this to me last night. I said, you got a big French exam coming up, November before Thanksgiving. And she goes, nous mettons le risque au travail.
Oh, no.
I didn't know what that meant until I did the translate. She's saying we're putting risks to work.
Putting risks to work.
Putting risks to work to get that quality C.
Exactly. But yeah, Damien, it's interesting that in emerging markets, people are looking for yield, Tom, and I think a lot of people, as Damien was suggesting, starting to lean in a little bit to that emerging market stuff.
How can I segue from French into Johnny Cash? Nous mettons le risque au travail.
Johnny Cash.
Johnny Cash.
Ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher, and it burns, burns, burns. The ring of fire, the ring of fire.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. With the opening bell straight ahead, the stock futures are in negative territory. Dow futures down 92, NASDAQ futures down 28, S&P futures are down 10. Crude oil is slipping, lower by 0.6% at $56.43 a barrel. Investors are assessing the latest comments on trade by President Donald Trump. He said yesterday the U.S. and China were close to completing a Phase 1 trade deal, but he also threatened the possibility of increased tariffs if that did not happen. Growth in consumer prices is cooling, a sign that price gains may be slow to reach the Fed's target. The core consumer price index, which takes out food and energy, rose 2.3% from a year earlier, missing estimates. Rent growth slowed down, posting its smallest monthly increase since April of 2011. Clothing prices and new car prices were also down in October, but prices for used cars went up. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Startups and research universities like New Jersey Institute of Technology are fueling the innovation economy. And few people are better positioned to see what's on the horizon in New Jersey than physicist and state representative Andrew Zwicker.
How technology is transforming our financial sector is revolutionary, and so much of that is in New Jersey. We are innovators when it comes to agriculture, and there is opportunity now for great transformation in how are we going to grow food in an ever-growing population, and how do we turn urban centers into agricultural centers. Autonomous vehicles is another one where we have some of the world's leading experts, and how this will transform how those who are either elderly or are visually impaired or mobilely impaired can start to use autonomous vehicles to transform their lives and have access to transportation they could have never had before.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu/research.
I've always loved a kitchen experiment, especially smoothies. I've blended all sorts of mad combinations. Strawberry and charcoal, broccoli and chocolate. Not my best, that. But when I test blenders in the Witch Lab, it's not about flavour, it's about performance. Our tests use proper tough stuff, hard ice, strong veg, rough nuts. And the blenders that can hack it are the only ones we recommend for your kitchen.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
It's never nice missing out. But millions are doing just that by having a current account that doesn't pay them any interest on their hard-earned money. TSB is here to help. They offer interest to all their Plus account customers for no monthly fee. So if you're one of the millions of people who are missing out, talk to TSB. Terms and conditions apply.
The S in Audi S-Line stands for many things like sporty, stylish, streamlined, and now seductively priced. like the new Audi A4 S-Line, which you can now have from £359 per month, £2,154 initial rental. Test drive one at your local Audi centre, but you'll have to be swift. The offer ends soon. Search Audi S-Line. Audi, Vorsprung durch Technik. With 48-month contract hire, 10,000 miles per annum, 18s and over, subject to status, damage charges may apply, no ownership. Ordered by 31st of December 2019 from participating centres. Audi Financial Services, visit audi.co.uk.
If you're planning on driving this weekend, expect delays on the A406 North Circular Road. There'll be road closures between Edmonton and Tottenham from 10 p.m. on Friday the 15th of November to 5 a.m. on Monday the 18th of November, while we carry out essential maintenance and repairs. All roads in the surrounding area will be extremely busy, so please allow more time for your journey and expect delays in the area. Plan ahead and check alternative routes at tfl.gov.uk. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
No one wants to wait and wait and wait for that perfect phone. Thankfully, the Tesco Mobile Black Friday event has started already. You can find loads of brilliant phone and SIM deals with low monthly prices and big savings, including time-limited weekly deals. Tesco Mobile's best ever Black Friday event is on. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Best ever Black Friday based on range of products and length of promotional period. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
And good morning, I'm Karen Moscow, along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. And the opening bell is brought to you by SEI. Visionary asset managers find opportunity where others are challenged. Exploit disruption's potential with SEI's global operating platform. Find out how at SEIC.com/IMS. The S&P 500 lower at the open, down 0.33% or 10 points at 3081. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.33% or 93 points at 27,598. And the Nasdaq's down 0.4% or 32 points to 84.54. 10-year Treasury up 19/32, yield 1.86%. Yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.6% or 32 cents at 56.48 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.7% or $10.70 at 14.64.30 an ounce. The euro 1.1006 against the dollar. The yen at 108.75. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Yields drive lower off of Chairman Powell's speech. It is released. I have it in front of me, doing surveillance word searches, and the headlines come out as well with a weight to the tape, -90 down to -101, just in the opening, as Karen just mentioned. But Paul Sweeney, yield comes in down 6 basis points, now down 7, 1.8670 on the 10-year yield, and I would say that is tangible. A couple ideas here. I did a word search.
You did?
The word solid shows up two times. Two times. Which speaks to what we've heard from Vice Chairman Clarida. He speaks of inflation 13 times, and that again speaks to this huge symmetric conundrum that Charles Evans alluded to the other day. The one headline, Paul Sweeney, that really sticks out to me: investor risk appetite, quote, elevated in some asset classes.
Yeah.
That, I would need interpretation from Michael McKee on that. That, to me, is a surprising headline.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Chairman Powell and his statement, which is, again, just crossing the Bloomberg terminal here. Policy, the Fed policy is appropriate as long as the economy stays on track. Okay. The baseline outlook favorable, but noteworthy risks remain, citing trade uncertainty and sluggish growth abroad. So clearly pretty consistent with what we've heard from the Fed. Let's get some thoughts on what we're seeing from Fed Chairman Powell here and what we may hear from him at 11 a.m. Eastern. We welcome Chris Rupke, Managing Director, Chief Financial Economist at MUFG Union Bank. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. What do you expect to hear from Chairman Powell as he testifies today at 11 a.m. Eastern?
Well, luckily for us, he spilled the beans already and put out his statement. I was a little surprised. It sounded to me as if in the press conference just 2 weeks ago that he had said the risks, one of the reasons that they were pausing in the rate cuts was that the risks from Brexit and the China trade talks had diminished. But now, I mean, the headlines make it sound as if, the risk is still out there in terms of what could happen with trade. So that was interesting to me.
And on page 3, to get to the point of the elevated, I'm looking for that headline again, elevated in some asset classes, Chris Rupke, he moves forward to the end of this week where the Fed will be, quote, releasing our third financial stability report. I mean, if it's like the Green Book at the IMF, what I'm hearing is things are okay. Which asset classes are elevated?
I don't know. I guess
I agree. I don't know.
Collateralized loan obligations, I guess, are having some problems. Maybe some of the high yield market.
So you don't think he's talking about the stock market?
I don't think he means the stock market. Well, I mean, look, the Dow is up 18.4%. I hope they're not pointing to the stock market as an asset class that is elevated. I think.
Oh, go ahead, Chris, please.
Yeah, I don't think it's a broader stock market this time.
I was in the triple leveraged all cash fund. Rupke was in the triple Apple fund.
Absolutely, that's exactly
triple leveraged,
right.
Triple leveraged Apple fund.
I think I like his returns a little bit better than yours.
I'm in the top tier of it, though.
So, Chris, I mean, the market seems to be discounting, again, kind of one rate cut coming out of this Federal Reserve over the next 6 to 12 months. Do you think that's reasonable?
Well, I mean, it really comes down to what's happening with trade. I mean, listening to the president at the Economic Club of New York yesterday, it sounded like he's still taking a hard line. Maybe that's his negotiating stance, as we know, but it sounds like he's taking a hard line, and he wants to see some material changes with China and the way they do business, kind of China Inc. So that didn't sound very good to me, because I don't think we're going to get a lot of movement there on their part for that. So we'll see. I mean, this phase 1 agreement could still kind of turn out to be less than what the market is hoping and expecting for.
What is your GDP view 12 months forward? I mean, you're having a cup of coffee in the parlor before the chairman comes out to testify. What would you suggest to the chairman would be GDP 12 months forward?
Well, I mean, I guess I don't want to go too far from what the Federal Open Market Committee is saying themselves. I mean, They have a number that's, what do they have, 2.2% this year. I'm pretty much close to that. Then 2% next year. Yeah, I think that's the FOMC, 2% next year in 2020. I wouldn't go too far from that. I think the idea that we're going to slow to the stall speed of 1%, where bad things can happen, like we can flip over and go into the ditch of a recession. Right. That's not. We're not going to see the 1%
Why not?
number.
Why are we not going to see the gloom that's out there?
Well, I think it's really got to be it's got to be trade. You know, it's got to be the stock market going down, thinking the trade agreement is on track. And also, I was thinking that the hit to GDP would be almost a percentage point if all the tariffs on 500 billion roughly of China imported goods go to 30%. But we're not there yet. You know, we're just at 15% for the September goods, and who knows what's going to happen at December 15th. So Chris, we're not there yet.
Thank you so much. Chris Rupke, thank you so much. MUFG, greatly appreciate it. The quick analysis here. We're looking at some of the images of the impeachment hearing. Speaker Pelosi moments ago speaking, I believe, to the media and in a huge conference room. I mean, it is not your cozy, small Washington conference room. The television monitors up. And what I find interesting, Paul, is behind the representatives, there's all sorts of descriptive boards, which you must believe they're going to allude to throughout it. So we've got some Ross Perot, the late great Ross Perot is the one that's maybe sort of invented that in the modern age.
That's right, I remember that.
And I see 1, 2, at least 3 of those descriptive boards behind there. And we will see as the room begins to fill up. That testimony 20 minutes away. Chairman Powell, an hour and 20 minutes away, will have full coverage of the Fed discussion, as well as he considers elevated in some asset classes.
Yeah, looking at the market, Tom, we were, down much more at the opening here, where the S&P is just down 5 here, Dow down 20. So, as the market digests some of the commentary coming out of the statement from Fed Chairman Powell, a little bit of a lift from the earlier futures.
Yeah, one other sentence which gleaned a headline, quote, in a downturn, it would also be important for fiscal policy to support the economy. However, as noted in the CBO's recent long-term budget outlook, the federal budget is on an unsustainable path.
Yep.
We've heard this before.
We've heard ECB talk about the need for fiscal stimulus in Europe, and a similar commentary coming out of the U.S. Fed.
Interest rates are low.
They are low. And they're negative in Europe.
1.87%. We're in 6 basis points on the 10-year yield. The Dow, negative 27. Please stay with us.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you, Tom. The first public impeachment hearings begin today. 2 witnesses will testify, Bill Taylor and George Kent. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff opens the first hearings on whether President Trump pressured Ukraine to investigate the Bidens. Republican Congressman Mike Johnson says the inquiry is just one big show.
We're going to talk about what's appropriate and what's legal, but we have a political show today. This is theater. It literally is. The Democrats have been rehearsing this in the basement for weeks. They have a script that's predetermined. They have witnesses that they've cherry-picked. They know exactly what they're going to say today. It's all based on hearsay. And now the cameras are on. Everyone's here, and this is the opening act.
Another witness will testify later this week, followed by 8 more next week. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and President Trump will meet at the White House today. Relations between the 2 NATO allies are at their lowest point in decades, with Turkey facing a Washington backlash over attacks on Kurdish civilians during its incursion into Syria last month. A judge ruled the Trump administration broke a federal law when it reached a settlement allowing a small gun technology company to post online the digital blueprints for making weapons with a 3D printer. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts from more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. Again, the Dow, negative 30. Stay with us.
Imagine being denied an apartment because of your religion, or your race, or because you have children, or a disability.
It's so wrong.
Yes, but who has the power to stop this?
You do. Each of us has the power. The law is on your side. It's illegal for landlords to discriminate because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, or familial status. If you suspect that you have experienced housing discrimination, file a complaint with HUD immediately so we can investigate it. Fair housing is your right.
Use it.
To learn more, visit HUD.gov/fair housing. That's HUD.gov/fair housing. Or call 1-800-669-9777. 1-800-669-9777. A public service message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Why do hedge funds and other alternative managers rely on Pershing? Mark Alderati, a managing director at BNY Mellon's Pershing and head of Prime Services, explains.
In today's environment of market volatility, Pershing's Prime Services is well positioned to support the needs of hedge funds and other alternative investment managers. Whether it's customized financing or securities lending solutions, platform access, or business expansion, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and agile enough to meet your evolving demands. Pershing helps to solve the needs of clients by advocating for them, providing unwavering strength, deep supply, and award-winning service that is at the core of everything we do. Find out what sets Pershing's prime brokerage team apart.
Learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers offered by BNY Mellon's Pershing. Visit our website at Pershing.com. Pershing LLC, member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
This is the sound of festive fun in London. You want to keep your savings for the things you love this Christmas, not a new boiler. We're with you. So our boilers come with 2 years interest-free credit to keep your savings for a Merry Christmas. you'll get a 5-year British Gas warranty. And now we can quote by video call evenings or weekends. Get a quote by the 30th of November and get £150 off a new boiler, or £450 off for existing home care customers. Search British Gas New Boiler. Conditions apply.
At TUI, we can help you find the perfect getaway for two. We fly to over 70 destinations worldwide, so wherever you have in mind, we'll help you get there. Book now and choose from thousands of holidays under $399 per person and pay £0 deposit when paying with direct debit. Book online or in store with one of our travel experts. At TUI, we cross the T's, dot the I's and put you in the middle. Offer available on selected holidays for a limited time and subject to availability. Booking T's and C's apply. At All Protected.
The puck drops. 12 players face off to win. The suspense is pure torture, but you wouldn't miss this for the world. TuneIn brings you every minute of the NHL season. Listen live to hockey when it matters most on TuneIn.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
Cook got a block. Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
NFL fans, hear every live game on TuneIn Premium.
The snap, the give, Jones up the middle, runs it back. He's to the 10, to the 5, to the end zone, touchdown.
This Thursday, hear the home and away call as the Pittsburgh Steelers visit the Cleveland Browns at 8:20 p.m. Eastern.
Getting pressure again, rolls to his right. Fakes, he's going to run with it. He's the 5, touchdown.
At home or on the go, hear the home and away call of every NFL game this season on TuneIn Premium. Upgrade today. College football is live on TuneIn. Listen for free to games from more than 140 schools all season long.
To the 10, all the way to the checkerboard. Somebody stays on his feet and scores us down.
The top of the Big 12 is at stake. Reigning champion Oklahoma travels to Waco, Texas to take on the surprising undefeated Baylor Bears. The action kicks off this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Listen to every call and every game of your school all season long for free on TuneIn. Just search college to listen today.
24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Special report, public impeachment hearings begin. I'm Christopher Cruz. 2 veteran diplomats will testify before the House Intelligence Committee this morning, including William Taylor. He's told House investigators the Trump administration withheld military aid to Ukraine in an attempt to force officials there to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and his son Hunter. Capitol Hill correspondent Madhu Raju says the Democrats have a plan for the hearings.
They want these 2 witnesses to lay out the full storyline of events, their concerns about what they were seeing. The president enlisting his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, to push the Ukrainians to announce investigations into his political rivals, dig up dirt into the Bidens, at the same time as vital military aid had been withheld.
Taylor has now arrived at the U.S. House. The hearing is set to begin at 10 a.m. Eastern. Mr. Trump is already tweeting about the hearings. In one tweet, he said simply, and in all caps, never Trumpers. Special report. I'm Christopher Cruz.
They like new developments.
This is an industry that is in demand.
They love telling you about all of them.
What will society ultimately decide?
Carol Messer and Jason Kelly. Bloomberg Business Week. Weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. U.S. stocks stalling near all-time highs as investors see few reasons to pile in after a furious 5-week rally. The dollar and treasuries are rising, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 down 0.25% or 7 points at 3084. Dow Jones Industrial Average down 0.2% or down 0.1% now, down 38 points to 27,653. And the Nasdaq's down 0.25% or 22 points to 8464. 10-year Treasury up 20-30 seconds, yield 1.86%. The yield on the 2-year 1.62%. NYMEX crude oil is up 0.33% or 19 cents at $57 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.7% or $10.50 at $14.6430 an ounce. The euro 1.1009 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.73. And Apple introduced its first major update to the MacBook Pro laptop in 3 years today, adding a slightly larger screen to the top-end model, improved speakers, a better keyboard, and faster processor from Intel. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. Surveillance correction, always in order. This one came from Al from New Jersey. Thank you for listening from New Jersey. I misspoke. I said conference room, where the impeachment hearings were in. Al from New Jersey talked to a historian at Princeton who said, no, it's a hearing room.
Hearing room.
It is not. It's neither. It's the House Ways and Committee hearing room.
Okay.
And this has to do with House Ways and Means. This is the glorious 1940 room that seats pushing 300 people. And there today will need 100 members of Congress who are not on the committee will be there. And, of course, the media is assembled in that. But we thank Al for emailing that in from New Jersey.
Yeah, look at him paying attention.
He listens digitally.
Oh, he does?
Does digitally.
Okay.
I think there's it's a clean response. We say good morning on Bloomberg 1130 in New York, and we do so because, as Karen mentioned, there's a new toy. 2 out of 5 children have mentioned it to me this morning. Paul Sweeney, tell us about the new toy.
Well, Tom, I think you need to walk over to the Apple Store on Fifth Avenue and just trick it out and get yourself an upgrade. A new update to the MacBook Pro. We have John Butler from Bloomberg Intelligence. He covers all things Apple and technology and all that good stuff for Bloomberg Intelligence. He joins us here in our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. So, John, when I think about new products coming out, I'm always just with Apple. I'm always just thinking phone. But this is the first upgrade to the MacBook we've seen in a few years. What's the deal here?
Yeah, it's a big deal, Paul. I mean, that segment for Apple, the computer segment, is almost 10% of sales. So if they have a hit on their hands with the new system here, by the way, they have a new Pro edition on the desktop side as well. My sense is it could drive better growth in the segment. If you look back over the past year, overall the segment grew a little over 2%, but they had some down quarters along with some up quarters. So my hope is the new MacBook Pro can help to stabilize sales in that segment and maybe even drive growth a bit higher.
So when we think about the MacBook Pro, how profitable is that versus, say, a phone?
You gotta be kidding.
Yeah, I want to get down into the numbers here.
Apple doesn't reveal margins by product line, but I am going to guess that phone is far more profitable. It's a smaller form factor at a pretty hefty price right now, and they drive huge volume manufacturing efficiencies with it. So
and you said what, $2,700 for the fancy one?
Yeah, the new MacBook Pro is going to start. Did you mean the phone or the?
No, the laptop.
So the laptop is going to start at $23.99. By the way, you get an extra inch of screen for that. It's going from 15.
John, gotta have it.
To 16.
Out the door this morning, Afterthought said, I need 2 terabytes of memory.
I think you do, actually. Memory is everything.
Okay, folks, let's cut down here to why the stock has gone up. You got to have the 9th generation, blah, blah, blah. You got to have 64 gigs of RAM so you can watch YouTube videos. And then you keep the graphics where you are because you're not going to the moon. And then Afterthought needs 2 terabytes. I'm clocking in at $4,200 in 6 clicks.
Easily.
Easily, you say.
These systems can go up to $5,000 for the MacBook Pro laptop. So they can get pricey fully loaded, but if you're
I'm going to get fully loaded.
The starting price is $23.99. So if you want to be frugal, that's your price of entry there.
He has no choice. He's walking over to Fifth Avenue right after the show. So John, I mean, this stock has just been up 65% this year. What's the bull case for Apple? I thought phone sales were flattening. I thought
full disclosure, the bull case is we all should have listened to him.
That's right.
That's the bull case.
So the bull case for growth, particularly, is, in my mind, I saw this coming. They had a terrible year for iPhone, looking back over the past 4 quarters. Down roughly 15% quarter in and quarter out. We're beginning to lap that now. So they're up against easy compares. And the new iPhone 11 and the Pro models are very well received. So you have a great new product on the market, and you're facing easy comps.
Tom, do you have the 11? You have the 11.
Yeah, I have the fancy one, and I have the new.
It's fully tricked out.
But this is important. Let me go to this. Can I rip up the script, Paul? Because this is really always interesting with John Butler. I just downloaded the other day off of a massive rave review from Australia a new film app called First Light. It's a Filmic Pro people, which Selena Gomez just did her new video for her hit single off an iPhone using Filmic Pro. You know, it's what everybody uses for those iPhone videos you see. They just came out with a still image, which is a quantum leap in grain, light exposure. I mean, the whole racket is they're building this stuff, and your world, John Butler, just gets all the apps and all that just get better and better, don't they? That's the whole racket.
And the great news for Apple is they all get written to the latest processor in the iPhone, or any phone for that matter. And so it forces people over time to have to upgrade. Whether you need more memory or a better processor, all the app developers are, again, developing to the latest technology, not yesterday's technology.
But but now the phones, I mean, it used to be they were subsidized. They're not subsidized anymore. So you're actually, I mean, I remember getting phones and not even writing a check.
But like everything, it's going to subscription now. So they call it device as a service. So with Apple, you can actually finance your phone. You're really leasing it over a 1-year period. So you can do a new phone every 12 months, and Apple takes those old phones, refurbishes them, and resells them.
So my 6S, I got to upgrade.
You got to upgrade that, Paul. We're going to the store at noon. That really.
They're very cagey about all this add-on stuff as well. Does that add margin, like RAM, which is the smoothness of how it runs when you're sitting there, whatever you're doing, including using the Bloomberg terminal on a Macintosh? That's all great. But do they make money on the computer? Do they make money on the add-ons? Or is it really just all about Apple services?
So it's about both, but it's a great question. If you look on the phone side, they charge $100 for every jump in memory. So if you go from 64 to 128, it costs you $100, but it probably costs Apple around, I'm going to make it up, but I think I'm close, $20 on the cost side. So it is hugely profitable for them to add memory to these phones. And, that's been the model for many years now.
What is an 8-core 9th generation processors with turbo boost? It used to be simple. A7, A10,
the Pentium,
A11.
Remember that?
Yeah, this is the brain of the computer, and it's Intel, right? Is Apple going to buy Intel, or does Intel buy Apple?
I think they work together. How's that for an answer? But the big change here is the old MacBook Pros, the 15-inch versions, got thermally limited, I think was the term used. In other words, they got too hot and the processor automatically slowed down. So the heatsink on the new computer is 30% bigger, which is going to enhance the processing power.
They have the gorgeous little mini thing, and that's the same issue there. They get too hot.
They get way too hot.
How's the stock? The stock has been way too... John emails in from England and says, would you talk about the stock? I mean, can you go long Apple here? I mean, I don't even buy, hold, sell, but what a
well, I'm compliance constrained from answering that, but I can say...
I'm compliance constrained by buying the next toy. What do I do with the stock?
Well, the growth outlook looks good here. As we talked about, the comps are easy for the next year at least. The new iPhone's been well received, and we've talked about this. Coming next year, we have a 5G phone in September.
Who cares compared to all this other razzle dazzle?
You have to go 5G, Tom. I mean, that's the next thing.
I mean, the Christmas list is up on the refrigerator. It's all Apple. This is
a great brand. It's a very strong brand name.
Away from the jokes, a MacBook Pro, is this a sea change or an upgrade today?
This is an upgrade, but it does address some of the problems that sort of plague the 15-inch model. Like they redesigned the keyboard, so no more sticky keys. It's a larger screen by 1 inch, but that makes a big difference. And that heat sink problem we were just talking about is a big deal. So I think we're going to get a faster box this time around.
See, Tom?
So overall,
there's no
good
question.
news.
You have to make the upgrade, Tom.
And I just want to throw in, if we have time,
for you, you got 15 seconds.
The news that they may work with Richard Plepler, who is the genius of HBO behind Game of Thrones, is big news. So
always interesting. John Butler, go away. This is Bloomberg.
Whatever job you're searching for, you can find it on LinkedIn. First jobs, flexible jobs, work from home on a Friday jobs, advertising jobs, accounting jobs, HR, PR, even ER jobs, Soho jobs, Shoreditch jobs. Keep me away from the central line jobs. Banking jobs, building jobs, never ever boring jobs. Small jobs, big jobs, lunch in Borough Market jobs, or even voiceover jobs, which is how I ended up recording this ad. Search millions of jobs on LinkedIn and find one meant for you.
Next. Nah. Nope. Boring. If you skip through loads of your TV channels, why are you paying loads of money for them? With TalkTalk TV and Faster Fibre, you can access the nation's favourite TV shows, a world of films and sport, live and on demand, all for £25.95 a month for 18 months. And if you're quick, you'll even get a year of Amazon Prime on us. Search TalkTalk TV. TalkTalk. For everyone. Offer ends 5th of December, subject to availability. T's and C's apply.
This is the sound of Helen and Peter, hiking to the fairy tale fortress high above the winter wonderland below. Or it would be, if they hadn't stopped at the first beer house they came to. There it is, Helen and Peter. There's your incredible. Fly from London Gatwick to Salzburg from £29 each way. With British Airways, incredible is within reach. Terms and conditions apply. Limited availability and dates. Fare quoted is each way based on a return. CBA.com/Gatwick for details.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Is there any bank right now in the U.S. that you think is a buy?
Do you think Chairman Powell has lost the market?
Jeff Bezos is no dope. What's the big ka-ching?
The big question, I think, for investors is free cash flow.
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
The U.S. tariffs actually hurt both China and the U.S.
Large strategics are looking to either buy or invest in innovation.
Soybeans and corn have been basically at or below the cost of production for about 4 or 5 years.
And what we see more bonds, more yield.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Policy is appropriate. Jay Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, speaking in front of Congress today. We will take that live. That is coming up. Plus, we'll take a look at the risk-off feel as trade talks seem to be somewhat on a back foot, at least if you trust the headlines for the moment. Right now, let's head over to our own Karen Moscow for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Karen.
All right, Lisa, thank you. And ahead of those comments from Powell, we're watching the S&P 500 move lower, down 0.2% or 6 points at 3085. Dow Jones Industrial average down about 0.2% or 40 points to 27,650. And the Nasdaq's down 0.3% or 25 points at 8461. 10-year Treasury up 19/32, yield 1.86%, and the yield on the 2-year 1.62%. NYMEX crude oil is up 0.5% or 31 cents at 57.11 a barrel. COMEX gold is up 0.7% or $10 to $14.6370 an ounce. The euro 1.1014 against the dollar. The yen is at 108.75. Inflation data today did little to alter the view that the Federal Reserve is done easing and in no rush to hike as prices continue to rise at a tepid pace. Chairman Jerome Powell reinforced that thinking in prepared remarks ahead of his address to Congress this morning, saying the Fed's current policy is appropriate as long as the economy stays on track. And sources tell Bloomberg Google has partnered with Citigroup and a local California credit union to offer consumer checking accounts. The product will launch in 2020 with Citigroup handling most of the financial and compliance requirements. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Lisa and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Market Drivers is brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, ranked 53rd in the nation out of more than 4,000 universities for mid-career earnings of its graduates. Learn more at njit.edu. Looking at the markets here, we have a slight risk-off feel to the markets. Interesting. Bloomberg Stocks Editor Dave Wilson, what are you looking at here? Earnings are over. I'm not even sure what you do when earnings are over.
Yeah, wait for the next earnings period to come up. I mean, we do have, some companies whose fiscal quarters don't follow the calendar, and they're going to be reporting in the next couple of weeks. After the close today, notably Cisco Systems will be out with its results. Also, NetApp and data storage devices. So we'll have a couple of companies to look at, but there's just not all that much in terms of earnings at this point. When the stock that gets your attention is Energizer Holdings, which is up 14.5% after their results came out. Well, it goes to show you that earnings period is pretty much over. And really, it's all about when you look at the numbers that in fact we are, by all accounts, going to end up with a decline in profit for the third quarter, unlike the first and second quarters. And at least according to our data, companies in the S&P 500 were able to squeak out some kind of earnings growth. And, beyond that, I mean, the folks at Bespoke Investment Group were pointing out that if you just looked at the S&P 500 during the earnings reporting period, it would be a halfway decent one in terms of stock movement. Even though if you looked at, the numbers that the companies were reporting, that they weren't so great this time around. It's something like a 6% gain for the index. So, not shabby here.
No, and the question really is what's going to move it higher, though, right? And we are seeing a bit of a tepid day, really very little movement today. I will say Steve Chiavarone of Federated Global was saying earlier this morning he still thinks tech is going to lead the way. Do you hear a lot of people saying that?
Well, I mean, it's consistent with what has largely been the case throughout this bull market that, depending on how you count, it goes back to 2009. I mean, technology by far the best performer this year among the 11 main industry groups in the S&P 500, up more than 39% for the year. So, well ahead of the index and, given its prominent role in terms of weighting, I mean, it is certainly a group that people are going to focus on if they expect stocks to